What's up, everybody? Welcome to the first episode of the Fireside Lounge. I am your host, Malkuvius, aka Smooth Malkuv. We're going to be talking about a lot of interesting things, but before we get into that, let me introduce you to our co-hosts. We've got everybody's favorite cult leader, the Order of Dylan. Dylan, would you like to say a little something?
Sure. Yeah, it's good to be here, Mal. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited to talk some Diablo today with you guys.
Yes, sir, me as well. And everybody's favorite master of the smoke stack, Smokey, and you know this. Smokey, how you doing, buddy?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Are you ready?
Yeah. I'm looking forward to this patch and the season.
Oh yeah, for sure. I know we originally planned to record this a week ago, but life gets in the way, and it's lucky that it did.
Yeah.
The timing was great, right?
Absolutely amazing for us. But before we get too deep into the juicy meat of this talk, I want to ask you guys how you're doing, how your week has been, and what it's like playing Diablo in this season 0 time span.
Yeah, it's been first. My week's been great. Thank you for asking. Week's been fine. Just balancing work, the stream, and getting up some stuff on the YouTube. So spinning plates like that SpongeBob meme. Overall, yeah, the Diablo experience has been great so far. Season 0 or preseason, so to speak, has been a great way of learning just all the foundational elements of the game, getting through like the leveling and obviously having to deal with sort of the vanilla, the most vanilla that this game is going to be. Obviously, for anyone who was leveling past 70 knows how much of a slog that became, and now it's a bit less because of the buffs and things that they did to Nightmare Dungeon. So we get to tell the kids 10 years from now that are still playing Diablo 4, you weren't there when we were there, when XP
Back in
was
the old days of XP
when
games.
XP was hard to come by.
We had to go uphill both ways in the snow introduction.
Exactly. And so, it's been great. And for the most part, the game has delivered exactly what I hoped it, would deliver. And so, but obviously, I'm very excited to see what they do with these upcoming seasons. And we'll talk about season 1 obviously a little bit later.
Yep, Smokey, how you been, dude? How's it going? We haven't
Pretty
seen each
good.
other in a while.
Yeah, I've been over here I got 2 months till the move, so I'm just like getting things done. Been busy.
Yep, taking your break from streaming, right?
A little bit. I'm not trying to take a break because once I move, I'm not so sure how streaming will be. There are a few internet services up there, but one of them doesn't have a data cap, and if I get that one, I'm on a wait list though for it. But if I get that one, then I can still stream.
Okay, well, we hope that you can manage to get that one.
Me
100%.
too.
Fingers crossed, toes crossed, crossing my legs,
right?
Cross everything.
But I've been enjoying playing the rogue. My only really thing that they haven't really addressed, and they still haven't really addressed, and I'm a little still concerned about, is just that if you're a melee class and you got to go into something, you can go into something without any information and just wind up dead in an instant because you walk into some overlapping affixes. And I was hoping to hear something about that as a rogue this week. So I was a little disappointed that they hadn't mentioned anything more about how they're handling the mob density, because I think it needs to be tuned. But that was really the only thing that was negative about playing. I've been having so much fun on the rogue in general. I rarely get into those situations, but when I do, it does feel disappointing.
Awesome, that's good to hear. And we'll get a bit more in depth on what we're playing individually and what classes we like and what we're enjoying so far about the game here in a bit. But before we get too deep into this, I do want to mention that today we're going to be talking about Diablo 4 and pretty much only Diablo 4. This podcast will probably have other episodes that will have other topics, but for the most part, this will be a Diablo 4 podcast. And so that is what we will be talking about today, the Season 1 introduction, as well as what's up and coming, and what we and our thoughts as content creators and people that have been playing this game basically nonstop for the past 5 weeks think. But before we do that, I do want to say a few things in regards to how I have been doing and what I've been doing in these 5-week spans, because as an individual who started streaming with a few games at a time, Destiny 2 and Marvel Snap, for example, I didn't really have anything that is set in stone. until Diablo came out, and I was waiting for Diablo for a very long time. So finally getting to touch it after this long period of time has made me personally ecstatic. I don't know about you guys, but this
Mm-hmm.
is one of my favorite game releases in the past 5 to 6 years. Dylan, I know for a fact you were on that Midnight Suns train for a long time, and that game was a lot of fun as well. But it's a different style of game, you know. It's not a game that's meant to be played for a long period of time, unlike how Diablo is in that sense. And I think it's going to be interesting to see where we go from here. What do you think?
Yeah, this game literally brought me back from a 5-month live streaming hiatus because it was exactly what I had been looking for from a game. We really just hadn't had a game like this in a long while that was a big online multiplayer cooperative, cross-platform title. That in and of itself is exactly what I've been looking for in like sort of that, online RPG MMO space. And this game really filled that for me. And I was very, very excited about it. Like you said, I was doing Midnight Sun stuff and then transitioned to Diablo, which was funny because I joked about this on one of the videos that like I went from covering a game about you guys, heroes fighting Lilith to another game about heroes fighting Lilith. And so with this game, though, it's definitely delivered mostly on my expectations. In terms of being this just massive game that is fun to play solo, but also fun to play with people in a really fun social game, and a game that I also like to call, like you mentioned Destiny earlier. I consider those kind of games, those kind of looter games, to be kind of podcast games, right? Games where you can play them and enjoy them while listening to something else or doing something else. And as someone who enjoys gaming as a leisure activity, I love it. Like I love a game that is fun and has a great story and a more immersive world. But if I want to turn my brain off and just play the game and enjoy the game and vibe with it and do something else and multitask, I can do that as well. And so in that regard, this is kind of a perfect game for me. It hits every single level of the gaming experience that I want. It's fast paced, it's fun, it's deep. There's a lot to it. It's got a great story, great campaign, and there's just so much to love. And again, quite frankly, it's been one of the better games that I've played and enjoyed in the last few years for sure.
Yep, and we will get into what our tops are in regards to this game here. I just want to say for all those listeners out here, Dylan pointed out to something really interesting. This is a podcast, so if you are listening to this just staring at your screen right now, what are you doing? Put up Diablo.
Exactly.
Do it now. Play Diablo while listening to this podcast.
Well, okay.
But yeah, let's go ahead and go into our initial thoughts. We'll go ahead and start with you, Smokey. Smokey, what have you thought so far? It's been, like we mentioned before, 5 weeks. 5 weeks since. If some of you guys got in on the second, then you've had a little bit more than 5 weeks to play. But yeah, what are you feeling?
So for me, I'm like the fresh eyes character in the room or in the script, because I only watched my friends play Diablo when I would hang out at their homes and shit back in the day, and so I know about it. But the only AARPG I ever played was like Marvel and Marvel Heroes, and like same vibes, but different experience altogether, like in terms of like the world building and everything. And so this is the first one like Diablo that I've actually played. And for me, it's been a lot of fun. It's been fun, like learning, like just how things work and stuff. And then, I think one of the interesting things for me was watching how a lot of players that are new to this came in and freaked out over seasons and having to start new characters. And and that didn't really hit me that way. I was like, okay, but that's what the game is, right? Like, because I had been familiar enough with like friends playing it. So, but for me, it's like great story. It's great graphics. Donan's a badass. And like, I don't know. I like the end game loop in terms of, I like the whisper tree. I like repeating that, but I like repetitive tasks. I also like doing the nightmares. My only real thing with that is I wish we didn't have sigil dust attrition, because I have
Mhm.
the best luck with loot, like you know that, but oh my god, my luck with sigils is just booty cheeks.
There's not much good luck to have with sigils. Let's
Not
be
at all.
honest.
Well,
There's more negative to
fair,
sigil than good than positive.
fair, but I'm more thinking I keep rolling like the vulnerable and physical ones in a row, and it's like, yo, what do you want me to do? Like that's my damage. Like
It's the byproduct of having a mechanic where you have more negative modifiers than positive modifiers, and there's not that many in the negative pool, right? Because you
yeah,
have if you look at a sigil, right, you have the first modifier on that sigil is the only real positive modifier, right? You can say
right,
that the second modifier is also a positive modifier, but more often than not, it really doesn't make any difference
yeah,
if we're being
yeah,
quite honest, right? Because you can have battle hardened and you can have lightning calling, and it's like, okay, battle hardened is nice, you get that damage reduction while my health is low, sure. But lightning calling is like, what? I'm gonna tickle these mobs with a little bit of static electricity. Like go through
right.
this dungeon, lightning's coming down every 3 seconds, and the monster's like, huh, must have been the wind. Like honestly,
Right.
nothing. But and then you get down to those last few modifiers, and you're like, okay, well, I can either go range defender, 60% decreased damage for distant enemies, or I can go melee defender, or I can go lightning resistance. And it's like if you're playing in a party, the sigils that you can actually use are
Oh yeah.
significantly decreased because everybody's doing different types of damage.
Yeah, you basically just have to go, okay, who of us really like isn't doing as much damage in general as everybody else? All right, sorry, but Smokey, you're getting the anti-bleed one. Yeah, I know. Like that's I'm used to that. You know what I mean? But like it's not a feels good when four people can't like, just jam out and it's negative, Like
Yeah.
and someone gets like the short end.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Or one of my favorite things I've been seeing lately is the ones that give you the buff to shadow damage and then also decrease shadow damage. Have you seen
Oh
this? Like where
yeah,
it's like
yes,
literally
yeah.
you get like the main benefit is a buff to something, and then there's also an affix that literally reduces that same effect. Just
Yeah.
absolutely like comedy.
And if I remember correctly, the negative effects are actually stronger than the
Yeah,
buffs you can
yeah,
get.
no,
Yeah.
always.
Yeah.
They always are.
So it's like, okay, well, this completely defeats the purpose of it. But we could talk about literally their weird randomness
Hmm.
rolling rules, and I feel like we can definitely get into those later when we're talking about what we want to see and what we think could be changed.
Yeah.
But this is definitely something that we'll put on that list to talk about for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. It definitely makes me think of side quests and the very useful high end elixirs because we have to repeat side quests. And so if you have like maybe a lot of negative affixes and you want the high end elixirs to protect you, now you got to go redo that. Because I honestly
Smokey,
don't necessarily remember which ones were the ones.
they need to give us a list so that we can see what side quests we've completed. Another thing that
Oh,
we
yeah.
can cover later on. But
Yes.
it's there's a lot of funny things that you see as individuals that are constantly playing this game.
Oh,
You go,
yeah.
huh, that could be better, and you're like, well, okay, sure, yeah. But how often is the regular individual who's playing possibly like an hour a day at most
Hmm.
going to run into these issues, right?
Or even the developers, because that was something I remember from like Rod Ferguson specifically when he was speaking during the live stream um, for this upcoming season. He had said about what his play time was, and he was like comparing like if you don't play as much and if you play a lot, and he was coming from the perspective of doesn't play as much, and so it's interesting when you think about we notice this stuff versus like the developers because a lot of times people are really and honestly and I think the developers have been doing a really good job with this game and they're getting like a lot of unfair criticism a lot of times I feel like
Oh,
because
100%.
people are expecting too much of them and it's like yo there is no way they can like predict someone like our buddy Venom not sleeping for like 3 days and just going and then that somehow causing something that they didn't intend like they can't predict that because like
There's no way for developers to beat the collective hours of the
yeah,
players.
exactly,
Nope.
exactly. And I think we got to be more forgiving about that.
Yeah. But before we completely dive into the negativeness of this game, I want to
For
go ahead and highlight some highlights that we've had while we've been playing. So Dylan, my boy, what is your like favorite situation you have run into in this game so far?
Wow, favorite situation?
Like you were playing, it could be on stream, it could be off stream. You're just playing it. All of a sudden, you're like, "That was sick,"
No,
or
you
"That
like
was
murdered
amazing.
12
That was a
people
lot
in
of fun."
PvP.
No, well, yeah, we did a PvP run the other day, and that was absolute like total chaos in kind of the best way, but maybe we'll talk about that later. I would say we had a moment when we initially, on our first characters, group of us on stream, we went to do the tier 4 capstone, and we were all like very under leveled, and we just were like, let's just try to do it, and we got through it, and just that feeling of like crossing a milestone was something that I feel like I've still been chasing in the game ever since. And that was just such a again, I group play is high on my list of the things that I've enjoyed the most in this game, because just the absolute chaos on screen of everyone's abilities popping off all at the same time. Mal, you've been in one of those groups with me on
Oh
stream
yeah.
where like I'm over here blasting stuff with an arrow, Mal's shooting fire over there and all over the ground. There's a barbarian that's just spinning around, slashing everything, and then of course you got the druid over here with throwing tornadoes. It's just, and having all of that happen on screen, just shredding enemy after enemies, that is just purely satisfying, right? The combat in this game has been a delight. In a game like this, obviously, is going to hinge on the combat, and I feel like the combat has delivered. Every class that I've tried, even just the initial levels, all feel very distinct and very unique from one another, and the play styles are all very different, and just the responsiveness of the combat is sublime. And so that, combined with the group play and the fact that this game is cross-platform, is something that I want to shout this from the rooftops as much as I possibly can. They have absolutely nailed it in terms of the crossplay and just being able to instantly play with friends, friend somebody, add them to your clan, add them socially, and then next thing you know, boom, you're rocking together. The level scaling up to certain levels, I would say like maybe it's 10 or so, is fantastic, where it feels like I can play with anyone and we can do the content together, and it doesn't feel completely over leveled or under leveled in any way. Like it's just great. Like the group play just synergizes so well from teammate to teammate, and it's like doing world events too. Like it's not just dungeons, right? Going out and running around in the open world and completing objectives, completing quests, doing the hell tides, which honestly might be my favorite thing in the game right now.
Helltides are amazing. They're a beautiful in-game activity.
It's what I would say when we talk about things that I don't like. It's what I would say is really I want to emphasize further going forward, because the dungeons are great. It's the same sort of thing over and over again, even with the procedurally generated like changes to the map. But with the open world event, it's just because you can like literally involve everyone in that instance, and just the dynamic, like, oh, there's an event here, oh, here comes the volcanic the rocks from the sky, and then this is happening and that's happening, and then also you're farming this to go get to the chest, and you run into the chest, make sure you get there on time. And it's like I want more of that, please. Like I need that to be the game for me. That would be incredible.
Yep, and to build off of that, like the world events and the Helltides and stuff like that, the group activities in this game are heavily incentivize you doing them in a group.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that is a amazing implementation, because I played Destiny. I played a lot of Destiny. I have over 4,000 hours in Destiny. It's not a lot for some people, but like for me, that's a lot of hours.
Yeah, it is.
I feel like. And the biggest issue in Destiny, I always felt like, was the world events didn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
You could go and you could do them, and they would provide you with a little bit of glimmer and maybe a couple shards, but you weren't going to get anything that was really going to make a difference.
And if you even saw anybody else there at all.
Yeah, and more often than not, you would fail to get the heroic tier event because it was just you and this random dude who just happened to land here.
Yeah,
it's like, hey, might as well do
and
this
a lot
thing.
of them are on big spaces, like you're trying to traverse a lot of ground on some of those events in Destiny, and like by yourself, it just makes it really, really impossible.
Oh,
and when it doesn't have good rewards, that doesn't promote the group play like this does. I mean, like I'm not even as big a fan of Helltide as you guys, but like when Mal goes, "Hey, you want to come do Helltide?" I'm like, "All right, I'll come like watch someone chain some stuff to me and I might die. Let's go." And that's me on my
It rains
barb,
meteors of death, and you're trying to get on your horse.
right. Or like you're just me and you're just trying to take a little, little break, little rip, and bam! Oh, that was a meteor, dude! I lost all my stuff.
I just feel like the devs get a lot of negative, rep in regards to how a lot of things work in this game, and there's not enough positivity in regards to what is done really well.
I agree.
This is like it's like you've taken a car, right? And this is a model car. We've decided that we want to put this car up for sale. It doesn't have all the fancy features yet. This is model 1 of the car, right? For all intents and purposes, I am treating this as a new franchise game. They do have a lot of mechanics that they could have imported from the previous games into this game, but this is also, I feel, the biggest Diablo release ever.
Yeah.
So I can also see why they decided to leave those things out from the beginning. Also, I believe, and we talked about this, I believe, earlier on. I've talked about it, I think, on multiple occasions with both you and Smokey and Dylan. This game probably came out about 6 months early. It most likely was pushed out the door just to make a quota, to make it in time, because for whatever reason. And it shows, but at the same time, I'm surprised at how polished it actually ended up being.
Oh yeah, and I think when they did the XP buffing for like harder scaled content and people were able to level quicker, I think that aspect you're talking about like showed a little more and whatnot. But I mean, at the same time, season 1's around the corner, so everybody's just kind of waiting for that.
Yep. And for those of you listening to this podcast and you have not already bought Diablo 4, I recommend waiting for Season 1 to drop at this point. There's not really much to do left in Season 0. You could download the game, start playing for a bit. You could probably get a decent ways to the end game before Season 1 does drop, but you would have to roll a new character when Season 1 drops anyway to play the seasonal content.
I would say consider just beating the campaign and unlocking the map and stuff if you're coming into it fresh. That way you can hit the ground running. Season 1, I would counter with that maybe.
I could see that for sure, but one of the things I want to say that I enjoyed the most when I first started playing this game was not rushing to anything. I feel like one of the reasons that I actually enjoyed the fact that there wasn't that much end game was that I didn't feel like I needed to rush to the end game.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I feel like you could go either way with it. So if you are considering buying the game and you haven't yet, do take into consideration that you may feel like you have to rush through it during Season 1, whereas if you got it now, you might be able to just kind of like chill, do the pre-content, knowing you're never going to hit that 100 at this point probably, and like just enjoy the game for what it is, and then then you could do that rush on Season 1.
Yeah, but since we've talked about what we've been doing in game, how about we talk about what we are in game? I'll go ahead and just give a quick little TLDR as to how Diablo 4 is played. It is a action RPG, ARPG for short. The goal of the game is to build a character of one of the 5 classes that you can play, up from the weakest to the absolute strongest demigod level, wave-killing, disaster-walking machine across the street. Like, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a mechanic in this game where you walk into town and everybody just runs away from you. Because you are honestly on a completely different scale later on down the line. To the point where I find it hilarious when we go into some faction areas and you fight bandits and you're like, you're gonna try to rob me. Did you not just see what I did to that demon across the street?
Right? Like, this armor doesn't even have pockets. What do you think I have? I just have this sword. I'm good with it. Why?
But for those of you that have been watching my streams, I play a sorcerer. Sorcerer is a master of the elements, elemental destruction and mayhem. We can channel the powers of lightning, ice, or fire to cause devastation and chaos around the battlefield. I am primarily a fire sorcerer, and Firewall is my tool of the trade. It's just a somebody said I remember what it said, screen flood the game, because Firewall's whole purpose is just laying down walls of fire everywhere, and all it does is just continuously spread, so no one can see anything. You don't need to see.
Yeah, I'd say most of my deaths have been playing with you and your firewalls. Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
I'm not. You kill the stuff. It's all good.
Everything will die eventually.
Eventually.
But Smokey, I know you've gone a bit back and forth as far as to what you're playing. Why don't you tell everybody what you've been up to?
So I started on a barb back when Whirlwind was like literally broken from Edge Masters, and the two glyphs or aspects words interacting to where there was something like a 65,000% damage increase. And so I was playing a Rend Barbarian at the time, and it was really fun. I didn't really want to do Whirlwind. So when they changed that, it affected my build, and I didn't really feel like redoing it. And so I figured preseason, let's try some more classes. So I did Necro for a bit without any minions, and I tried to do like a Blood Knight thing, and then apparently Immortal gets a Blood Knight now, so that's fun. I kind of wish we had a Blood Knight. I mean, you can kind of make one. And then that didn't feel powerful enough, and I've been playing with our friend Lance a bunch, and he plays a rogue, and I was like, you know what? I always liked rogues. Why don't I just do that? And so now I'm a Death Trap rogue, and that's a lot of fun because stuff just dies, and I kind of just stand there and it dies.
Isn't that just always the end game of these sort of things? Is
right?
I sneeze and everything in the screen dies.
Right. And it's really nice because I can, like, you know, I shadow step and I stun stuff. I throw a poison trap down, things trip and fall. You know, like, it's really nice for those times when you just get some really, really powerful affixes on some elites, like, that are in the same radius. And, you know, if you can just knock them down and they're dead before they can do their nastiness, that's really, really convenient. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it a lot. I think, you know, even though it's what I've been playing a lot recently, it's probably also what I'll play season 1.
Yeah. And speaking of rogues, I get the feeling there's a significantly overpowered one in this chat right now.
You're referring to Smokey, of course, right?
Yes, no, 100%. Actually, you know what, Dylan? I don't know what you play. What do you play, Dylan?
I also play a rogue. Yeah.
Nice rogues.
Yeah. So the rogue that I've been rocking has been a infinite rapid fire rogue. So basically, I'm going dual imbuements, shadow and poison. Basically, rogues have the ability, of course, to add a element to their weapons or to their damage, their core skills, to incite further effects. Like shadow imbuement's really good for AoE because it splashes, makes everybody vulnerable, makes everything explode, which is beautiful. Poison shreds things, so I use shadow and poison. But the real like sort of play style I've been going with is a very run and gun, fast paced, just shoot things with rapid fire. Rapid fire has a really cool modifier on the end of its branch, which allows you to refund energy when you hit a vulnerable target. So as you get into the end game and into the Paragon board, you guys all know the single best probably glyph in the game right now is called Exploit, and allows you to proc vulnerable on a target on the first point of damage on that target, and it lasts for 3 seconds. So basically, every time you hit something, you're making them vulnerable immediately.
Yep.
So with rapid fire, and again with the improved rapid fire modifier, basically it allows you to spam rapid fire at targets all across the map and really never run out of energy, which is like the rogue's core resource. You can just spam it, and with the shadow imbuements, again, the ability to explode on death, further spread vulnerable is insane. Rapid fire is more so a single target damage skill. So one of the best aspects you can get for it is the accelerating aspect, which allows you to split the rapid fire shots on a percentage. Right now, I think the max is 90%. So a 90% chance for rapid fire to ricochet to another target. So basically, it's crazy. Like you're just able to just machine gun enemies with this build and with this skill, and throwing a little poison trap in there for some AoE and for the ability to reduce the cooldown or immediately reset the cooldown on those abuments with poison trap. And I use concealment as well as a way of getting out of situations. Oh crap button. But more importantly, with concealment, you can also proc vulnerable for 6 seconds when you come out of it on a target. So just again further stacking vulnerable on enemies. That's the name of the game, and it's, you guys know, like vulnerable is everything in this game. And so building the character around that has been essential, and I'm having a blast playing it.
Yeah, my rogue work similarly. It's just AoE. I think more focused. Man, like I'd like to see those two rogues side by side go through a dungeon. That'd be nasty.
Yes. Gotta do it.
And we might be able to get to, see if we can get the little party going on after the podcast.
Yeah, that'd be nasty.
A little fun. No one gets to see anything and everything dies,
Mm-hmm.
But going off of what you just brought up, Dylan, I want to talk a bit about the mechanics in this game, vulnerable being one. But to start off, I want to talk about that glyph you mentioned, exploit. So for those of you that do not know, when you get to the end game, you unlock what's called the Paragon board. The Paragon board is basically a wall of stats that you get to hand pick yourself, but it's good to follow a path because somewhere on those boards you'll find a legendary node, which is the board defining power, as well as what is called a glyph socket, which will allow you to socket these glyphs that you get from completing nightmare dungeons and high tier events around the world that will give you special powers, helping you deal more damage typically. Exploit is one of those. However, exploit's a little special because exploit is different depending on if you're playing a ranged class versus a melee class.
Really?
Yeah. So this is something I learned about a few weeks ago because I only played Sorcerer originally, and Sorcerer is the only class I currently have in endgame. But my Druid's about to hit there, so I was doing Druid builds, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do for my glyphs. And so I was going through the glyph list, and I was reading them one by one, and I ran by exploit, and I was like, wait, this isn't the same exploit as the exploit I use on my Sorcerer. And I went and I checked the Sorcerer exploit, and sure enough, the Sorcerer exploit specifically states, and this is the same for the Necromancer one as well, it states that it gives you increased damage to vulnerable targets, so increased vulnerable damage for every, I believe it's dexterity node. For every 5 dexterity, you get increased vulnerable damage. And which is different from the one that you guys have on melee classes, which says that when you deal damage for the first instance of damage on a target, you proc vulnerable on them. And I believe upgrading it, you can get increased damage to vulnerable targets, right? But it's a very interesting differentiation because that makes it very. It means that the way you apply vulnerable changes depending on the class that you're playing.
Yeah, like even a Necro applies it like you're talking about with the range.
Yeah, so the big difference here being, like I play Sorcerer. Sorcerer has a few ways to proc vulnerable, but the main one that pretty much everybody uses is Frost Nova because it's a guaranteed AoE proc vulnerable. It freezes, procs vulnerable, and everybody knows Sorcerer's level CC to the point where I think we have 4 aspects that increase damage during CC effects. So an aspect of out of control is just money. When it's on an amulet, 53% increased damage to crowd-controlled enemies. It's actually disgusting. But having that little differentiation makes a big difference when we're talking about that vulnerable application, because vulnerable is a absolutely necessary mechanic that you have to have in your end-game build in order to do damage.
Yep.
And I don't know, do either of you want to talk about what vulnerable is real quick? Or, I mean, I can do it.
It's the giant multiplier bucket that makes all the damage bigger than every other bucket in the game.
Yeah.
Yes.
Reducing, you do 20% more damage to an enemy, and you can stack that with stats on your gear that just multiplies, and it's literally, like I said, necessary. Like you absolutely need to focus on getting enemies into vulnerable and shredding them invulnerable.
Yeah, if you try to play without that, the game feels like the biggest grind of all time.
Yep. So there's a bunch of videos on YouTube that you can go and look up in regards to damage buckets. So I won't go into too much depth, but just a short TLDR. all of the damage types that you do fall into damage buckets. Your additive and multiplicative damages, like damage to burning, damage to chilled, damage to poison, all of that is in the same bucket as just pure damage. Whereas crit damage and vulnerable damage and overpower damage all have their own buckets. And what a bucket does is basically it just a multiplicative increase to your overall damage. And it is such a big difference that you could be doing a difference of like, I believe it was like 2,000 damage if you are just down one of those buckets. So if you are finding that you're playing this game and having an issue with your damage, check to see whether or not you're covering those bases, those bucket bases, because it could make or break your build, honestly. But going into builds, I know Dylan, you wanted to talk about a bit of diversity in the build as far as builds go.
Yeah, what's great about this game, and as I approach starting new characters in the season, that every single class, and I've seen this just been partying up with people. Every single class seems to have multiple ways to be able to approach the class. Like I've played a rapid fire rogue, even just in the ranged rogue meta, there are multiple ranged rogue builds that are viable, right? You could be doing penetrating shot, you can be doing barrage, you can be doing rapid fire, and they all feel and do different things. And that's just one half of the rogue, right? You could be doing a melee rogue.
Death trap like me, and you could be doing so. Lance doesn't even. We've talked about our friend Lance before. He doesn't do death trap like me. He just does twisting blades with like a shadow imbuement, and you could do twisting blades without the shadow imbuement. You could do it with the shadow imbuement, and you could do death trap, and that's like 3 different ways to like melee right there.
And again, that's the melee side of the rogue, and then you have the range side of the rogue, and there are again multiple things that you could be doing on either side, and that is just with that one class. This extends out to sorcerer with frost, fire, whatever it might be. This extends out to the barbarian. You can be a whirlwind, you could be a hammer of the ancients, whatever it might be. The diversity of builds in this game, I think they've nailed that. I think it is not like you each class. There's only one way to play that class. No, I have seen people destroy this game playing this type of a rogue, or that type of a rogue, or this type of barb, that type of barb, this type of druid, that type of druid. And that's, to me, that they needed to nail that to ensure that this game had a healthy and robust meta. And I think they've done that.
100%. And I do want to specify that this is not Dylan saying that all of these builds can contend for first place. This is just Dylan saying that you can play the game really however you want within the span of these classes and still make progress.
Yeah, you can play it viably.
Exactly, viable. That's always the key. Viable.
There will always be an optimal build. There will always be this is the 100% best build in the game, because when you have these sort of games that are run on math and equations and stuff like that, things are just going to work better together than some things. And that's just how it always will work.
Nature of the beast.
Especially in these games. It's just, it's the nature of the beast. It's just how all of these sort of end up. If you've ever played a previous Diablo game or Path of Exile, a game that's more relevant in recent years, they do. You'll go online and you'll find this is the best build for this class, and it's like, okay, yeah, that's probably the best build for this class. But that doesn't mean I can't go over here and just put these points into, let's say I want to take all of the only ranged skills on Rogue, or I want to take all of the only lightning skills on Sorcerer. I can do that. It's not going to put out as much damage numbers as possibly the mixed build or whatever showing up on that video, but I can do it and I can have fun with it. And I feel like that's very important.
Yeah, and I think fun is like the key element, and I think also having more than just one thing viable allows for accessibility in gaming too, because everybody, even with full ability will have different play styles and different things that are more suited to the way their brains work, right? As opposed to like, oh, you got to play one thing and it's like, man, that doesn't really make sense to me, or it doesn't quite line up for me and I don't play it as efficiently. And it allows people to do that. But then on the flip side, for like accessibility, one of our friends is playing this, has cerebral palsy, and he soloed like bosses. He got through stuff without me. Like I helped him whenever he asked, but he was really adamant, like he was going to try to get through certain things on his own, and he did, like, you know, and he was playing a necromancer, and he just tried like a couple different things, you know, found out, hey, you know, this works best for me, you know, and like for him, bone prison is a huge thing, which like allows him to, you know, be able to be more stationary, and that allows him to play the game better, you know, and that might not be something someone else needs. It might not be something someone else says, oh man, you got to run that because that's the best thing ever. But it's the difference for him between life and death in some situations, you know? And I think that's a key part of having, you know, that ability to play classes in a more varied way built into the game, because, you know, having that increased viability of different builds allows for, you know, that situation to, you know, work, and for someone like that to be able to enjoy the game as much as anybody else, you know?
Exactly. And you need to have that ability to determine exactly what you want and not have to be pigeonholed into playing something completely
For
different
sure.
just because that's the way it has to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
But diversity of builds, there's a lot to do. There's a lot to play as. There's a lot to play at the same time as well. I know we, as individuals playing this game, have spent a lot of time running around the world doing activities and just futzing about, basically, yeah, just spending time in the world. And I just
Right.
want to know, what do you guys think of Sanctuary in this game so far?
I think Sanctuary is proof of, you know, what you'll hear, you know, artists defending art say a lot of times. But I mean, it's beautiful. The art is absolutely like, wow. The world they've created is amazing. It looks great. It's smooth. Like, the story is amazing. And so it just makes me think of, like, you know, something Stephen King said in his book on writing about, you know, writing, which is that art, or life is not, you know, a support system for art. It's the other way around. And this game makes me feel that. It makes me feel that a lot, because I've been looking for like a game, you know, and I've been going through other games since I left like the main game I used to play, and we spent some time on Snap, and that was almost it, but not quite. And this, you know, like the story elements, the art elements, the world they've created with that, it's really like, you know, it's beautiful, it's unique, and the story, like, it grips you, man. That gave me the feels.
Surprised at how much I enjoyed the story in this game. Typically, games like this, where you're like the whole game is basically the end game, the story is a afterthought. But honestly,
No.
I'm looking forward to seeing where the story goes from here. Like, I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, and they said it's going to be like, this is the story, you know, campaign's the campaign, and then they said in the developer stream, they were saying that every season, like from here on out, is its own story that's occurring in that world that has existed and happened, kind of thing. Like, it's not going to change that story too, which I think is a cool element of the storytelling itself. It's kind of almost like you read like the novella, and now you get, you know, short story series or something, kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, to me, like Sanctuary, one of the things that first of all, the game is gorgeous. Like, just even from just the isometric standpoint, like it's just beautiful to look at, and the design, like just all the design elements, from the way dungeons look and how they diversified even the dungeons, lighting, shadow work, it's just all incredible. I really appreciate how they even managed to add some diversity to the biomes, right? From like the frosted peaks or the fractured peaks, the frosted tips of the fractured peaks, so to speak, to
Right.
like the oasis desert field, the dry steppes, to the swamps, Pawazar. Like, just riding through each region, they all look and feel completely different, and I appreciate that. Like, I appreciate the game. It feels like I am running through an actual world that exists and has life to it, which is something you just don't really see in games like this.
And they've even
And
managed, in like a smallish screen space compared to some, you know, games that you can zoom out more, etc. They've even managed to find a way to build like epicness into that too. Like the first time I ran across in the desert that Sarlacc pit looking thing,
Mhm.
that was the coolest thing I'd seen in the game.
Oh yeah,
I lost it when I saw that.
the tar pits are awesome. The freaking jungles that you can go through in Horizon is insane. I mean, I could do without the multitude of snake pits. Honestly, I'm gonna be real. Like, there's too many snakes in this damn game.
So many
I'm
snakes.
gonna be honest.
So many snakes.
There's so many snakes. I don't know why there's so many snakes.
Snakes and spiders, man. For my arachnophobia fam out there, I feel bad for you. They are entire dungeons that are just spider infested hellholes. I mean, there is literally a dungeon also, Serpent's Lair. There's literally a dungeon called Serpent's
Lair and the Shadowed Plunge are my two least favorite dungeons in this entire. I actually remember their names. That's how you know how much I hate them.
Mm-hmm, yeah,
because it's actually. Oh, I hate those stupid snakes. Where's my turn off snakes and spiders slider? But no, it's honestly like Sanctuary has, in my opinion, never been so detailed. Like, you could always go and you could read the books, or you could pay attention to the lore snippets and stuff like that. But in the previous games, a lot of the time you spent in dungeons or inside of buildings or in hell, for example, in like D3 or, in Tristram, in the bottom of the cathedrals. But I feel like we get to see so much more of the world, and I'm gonna be real, it's fucking disgusting.
Yes.
It is. I am surprised that anyone keeps their sanity in this space.
I mean, turning in your daily quests, or not daily quests, but like your Whisper Loop quests, right? Your world quest, a tree with a bunch of heads hanging off it going. I mean, that's some creepy stuff, man.
It's fun, it's cool, and it's disgusting. And I think it fits Diablo to the T. You every now and then you are just running on your horse across the endless landscapes, and you come across decapitated bodies, or dismembered horses and animals, barricades for bandits that are just lined up on the road.
I still remember the first dismembered horse I found. I was fighting something else, and because you've got like a gap closer with the barbarian, I gap closed across that body. I didn't know it was an interactable. I split the horse in half. That was so gross.
The actual disgusting, the torture pits, and like you go into some of these dungeons, and the interactables, like the guillotines, and it's like, why are these in the game? But at the same time, it's like, oh, they put little details in there. It's like, oh my god,
snapping a little body in a torture thing, and you're like, I didn't do it.
But that just goes to show how much love has been put into the game. I feel like it's the small details, and the world is Diablo. Like it's they don't want you having fun in this world. Like, you are not here to have fun. You're here to defeat all the demons, delete them as best as you can, because unfortunately for you, there's another evil around the corner. But
and the only good in the world is probably an evil that just needs you to help them, because the bigger evil is bigger than them.
Yes.
Little story spoilers there.
I say nothing.
But that actually segues into what I like best about this game so far, the world. Like, one of the reasons I am only 96 is I have spent too much time just fudging around. I just get on my horse, or I will get off my horse and just walk around and just spend time going through the different areas of the game. I really, really, really like the Fractured Peaks. I love the Fractured Peaks. It is such a cool area to just walk around through this snowy landscape, and your footprints are there,
Yeah, that is cool.
That's beautiful.
You get to walk to the top of mountains and see the snowed-in cathedrals.
Yeah.
It's honestly, it's just so cool. And the dry steps, the elevation changes, the different biomes that are in that area of the map.
The scale of some of the cities
that are nested
towns.
under. Yeah, the cities and towns are big on some of them.
They're gigantic. And it's like, I know a lot of people have complained about the fact that you have to walk from vendor to vendor. But personally, I'm like, hey, there's this gigantic city. Why would everything be right here?
Right? And, if that's like your biggest complaint in the game, just go to Saragar. It's right there.
Mm-hmm.
That is the smallest hub area, isn't it?
Small. It's also outdoor.
Yeah, it's all outdoors, so you can take your horse and get to each vendor's.
Yup.
Like the occultist and the alchemist are right next to each other. All of the
Yup.
armor and the blacksmith are all right there. It is by far the only problem with it is just that the stash is all the way in the back left-hand corner. But for the most part, it's probably the most centralized hub you can visit to get
Yep.
everything in one shot.
Yep.
So, a little pro tip here,
Right.
for those of you that do not know, the Tree of Whispers is also a great area to go to if you just need
Yes.
to offload.
Yes.
It's got a blacksmith, a vendor, and a stash literally in the same scope of your screen.
It's the only place I willfully loot gems until they put them in the materials tab.
Oh, we'll talk about that when we get to the things we don't like. But the things that we do, as far as the things that we do like, I will say that the world is my favorite thing, and my second favorite thing so far is the animations.
Yeah, they are really
love
good.
the character animations. They're so cool. From how the sorcerer swings his wand in his focus when casting a spell, and the animation for the spell cast actually changes depending on what spell you're casting. From the barbarian full chest shouting, weapons on his sides, whenever he casts one of his shouts. I just find that so cool.
Right? Like he looks like Peter Pan, but like super buff and screamy. Just like that Peter Pan pose.
The barbarian is one loot away from being a barb. So, you know. But what about you guys? What are your favorite things?
Well, I think my favorite thing was probably literally it had a great story because that matters for me. My second favorite thing is probably the ease at which you can like get around. You know, like they don't make that take a long time because like I you know, like RPG wise in general, the one I played the most was like Warcraft. That's a lot of walking. We used to call it World of Walking back in the day. So I love that traveling is like not too bad. Like you could pretty much any like say you're doing like a whisper quest and you're trying to get that grim favor, anywhere that you waypoint into a zone, no matter if it's the farthest one of those, you know, quests for that loop, it'll take you like maybe 90 seconds to get there. Maybe in the worst of cases. If you got dazed off your horse or something even. And I like that. That's probably my second favorite. It's quick to get places. I like that.
Yeah, they put waypoints in reasonably convenient places, and then once you get your horse in the campaign, it also makes things a lot easier. You know, I've talked about it already for the most part, but group play is just it's so much fun. Being able to run around with anyone and everyone, regardless of platform, is like again one of the reasons why I wanted to play this game in the first place. And it is incredibly seamless, and being able to help one another with something, like being able to help someone, hey, I'm struggling with this thing, or hey, you want to go down to PvP, like that is centrally like why I am enjoying this game more than anything, is that group aspect, and how group play is encouraged, like you mentioned earlier, that you do get more XP for playing in a group and for having nearby players. Like you're going to level faster by playing with a group, and it's like literally encouraged in the gameplay, which is huge.
Yeah, like you see people stop when you're doing an event and they go, oh, you're doing an event? All right, hold up. And they hop off their horse and they're like,
Legion events, it's like they're giving away, it looks like Black Friday. Like when a Legion event pops up, you literally just see everybody scrambling to that location.
Right.
Literally like they're giving away
it's like a race on the horses too. Everybody's like, who's gonna get there faster? I see you leave the town same as me. You're not beating me. Come on.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Yep. And for those of you that do not know, in the Legion event specifically, you can use the campfires to get an even bigger EXP buff. So get there as early as you can.
Yeah, don't wait. Get there at least with 4 minutes to spare, and you can get the 15 stacks.
Yep. It's a game meant to be played with other people, and they make it very easy to do that, even though they could also implement an LFG function. And I mean, like that's a feature that is kind of weird that it's missing. But
yeah.
I assume it's something that's 100% coming along the way. It probably has to do with the crossplay.
I would think so, because I mean, you can still like get help with something, but you got to kind of be where you want to be. Like an example would be, I think when it was like launch day or the second day after launch, we had all been playing for a while together on like the pre-play days, and So I was well ahead, and I had been helping a friend or something. So I was in like a lower tier that day, and someone in town was like invites me, and I declined because I thought it was probably something fishy because I don't know the person, right? And they messaged me and they're like, hey, I need help with something, and I'm like, oh, throw me that invite again, and then I followed them wherever they were going, and I went and killed the thing they needed killed, and I mean, that was fun, but they should definitely add an LFG to make that easier for sure.
And we'll go ahead and get back into talking about this topic after a quick break. Go ahead and give you guys some time to stretch and get some water if you need it.
I'm gonna use the restroom.
We'll be right back.
Sure thing.
I'm gonna go fill my water bottle real quick because I ran out of water like 15 minutes ago and
No
I am
worries.
thirsty. And we're back. A little short break right there just to rehydrate, get some stretching in because we've got a lot to talk about still, and I feel like we've only gotten like a third of the way in probably. But so we've gone over basically what we all like about the game so far, and we've talked on and about what we've enjoyed seeing and a little bit about what the game is in itself. But let's go ahead and talk about what we've seen in our time of playing that we think could be improved, what could be better, what we don't like that we think could be either changed or taken out entirely.
Yeah.
Dylan, do you sound like you've got something on your mind?
Well, it's more of a macro issue, yeah, for sure. I think there's some gear stuff that I can get into, but I think the big thing that I want to talk about is just the lack of true endgame. And what I mean by that is once you get to level 100, right? There really is nothing new for your character to do. And this feels at odds with most games that I've played, whether they be MMOs or looter games, which is to say that, like, okay, once you get into Nightmare tier, right, at level 50 or around 50, that's when the game like truly opens up, and you typically completed the campaign obviously by then, so you get access to Nightmare dungeons, to Fields of Hatred, to Hell Tides, like all of the quote unquote end game activities. But that's not like end game necessarily. That's mid game, considering that the level cap is 100. So
Yep.
the issue I have is that, okay, especially before the big patch was 103, where we had like all the fixes to Nightmare dungeons, the leveling slog after like 70 was just a intense grind of like epic proportions. Now it's a bit smoother and it is easier to get through those levels. But here's the issue. What are you really chasing as you get to level 100? The thing is, there's nothing new that like opens or activates for your character once you get to level 100. Even the big Uber Lilith boss that, is kind of the final capstone of the game is technically unlocked earlier in Torment difficulty, I believe. So what is really the incentive outside of that one boss encounter to really get to level 100? It's not like how you see in most games where it's like, okay, you're at max level now it's time to do raids, or now it's time to do this different type of end game activity. There is literally nothing. Once you've gotten to level 100, you have played the game. You've played Hell Tides, you've played Nightmare Dungeons, outside of just pushing higher and higher and higher Nightmare Dungeons, which are, again, the same dungeons you've been pushing already. There's nothing that is actively new to do. And I think like what the game is missing right now is actual true level cap end game, where it's like you get to level 100, you've got through the grind of all these Nightmare dungeons, doing Hell Tides, doing all these things that are in the last two tiers of difficulty. But now it's like, okay, you're at end game, cool. Give me some sort of new crazy dungeon. Maybe it needs to be played in a group. Again, some sort of raid system of some sort that we kind of saw in Diablo Immortal. They did have things like that in Diablo Immortal. Some sort of, because just a singular boss like an Uber Lilith is not really enough. That's just, once you beat that and conquer that, that's it. It's one singular boss encounter. There's got to be some sort of new thing. Obviously, we may or may not get into it, but there, tier 5 is a thing that has been data mined, right? And that makes so much sense. Like, there needs to be something for your character to do at level 100, because as I'm sitting here right now, as of this recording, we've got like less than 2 weeks to go into the season 1. I've got a character at level 100 that I just genuinely have nothing to do with that character. Like, there's nothing for me to chase outside of just wanting to beat Lilith. Like, that's it. There's no thing for me to go and now engage with after the grind of getting to max level. And for me, that is the singular thing that I am most concerned about. And I want to see them, especially in this eternal realm, I want to see this level cap gameplay experience evolve into something, because currently it's really nothing.
Yeah, like, and going back to, Torment level 5, I was thinking as you were talking about it, it would be nice even if, there was an end game nightmare where, like, you just can't res. If you wipe, that's that. You failed. Sucks to suck. You know what I mean? Like, and because right now in Torment 4, right, you get 4 total wipes.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's donezo on the 5th. So, like, what if it's just like, hey, you can get some really good stuff from this one, or like whatnot, or some materials that are like hard to come by, or whatever it is, like something end gamey. But like, if it's gonna be like repeat the same content, make it like, okay, I can't die now. If I die, then it sucks to suck. Like, your friends can res you, but if it's a full wipe, it's a full wipe, and that's that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is all stuff that could definitely be included in like a World Tier 5, for example.
Yeah, exactly.
Of Torment. We've always, I can't remember if there was always 5 difficulties. I believe there were 5 difficulties before in the other Diablo games, but you can see that there should be a 5th difficulty in this game. It feels like there's a slog in between like level 85 to 100.
Oh,
there
for sure.
should be something else right there in that gap, because for those of you that do not know, level 85 is literally the halfway point in leveling. 50 is half of 100, but 85 is half the is half of the total XP you need to hit 100.
And at that point in time, it felt like every nightmare I did that was appropriately hard and over my level, I got a bar or a little bit extra. And the closer I get to 100, that shrinks, and now I have to do like 2 to get a bar, and so on and so on. And so, yeah, it definitely feels like there's something that needed to be there, an increased tier.
And to your point, like, again, the end game activities, again, the beginning at nightmare tier, which is around 50, right? That's all of the stuff that's in tier 4 there's nothing new really added to tier 4. You complete the capstone to unlock torment difficulty, and you're not unlocking anything new. You're just unlocking higher nightmare dungeons, but that's it. There's not, like, again,
exactly.
There's no, in that grind from level 50 to 75 and 80 and beyond is much longer than the initial grind from 1 to 50. And again, the game just stops giving you things. So once you get to like 85 and 90, you get into this really difficult part of the game where you're just not doing anything fresh. Like, nothing new is being introduced to you at that point. And as Mal said, that's a huge leveling period in terms of the amount of time it's actually going to take you to get to the next level. And that's a lot of time to be playing the game and not really doing or getting anything new.
Yeah, and it'd be nice to get like the light versions of the true end game at that point, So like to that end, they literally have all the developmental pieces in place. They're just not implemented necessarily most effectively for an end game. For example, we have boss encounters, and my favorite dungeons are the ones where they don't end because I like destroyed the third thing that doesn't do anything to me. You know what I mean? Like, that just feels like an unceremonious end. Whereas, like, if I got to fight a boss at the end, I mean, yeah, usually I nuke it, but I mean, if I go to a harder and harder one, okay, I actually might have to pay attention a little bit and fight it. And those boss fights feel the most rewarding to beat. And I feel like they've got those parts there. They've got those little dungeon bosses. They've got these big ass world bosses. Like, the big ass world bosses, there's room somewhere in there for like raid mechanics. They just have to put it into an instance, and to that end, they still need an LFG. But in terms of
Mm-hmm.
in terms of like the bosses. You know, they could do a gauntlet of they have the bosses, just make us fight them all in a gauntlet, and you get something really dope at the end. You know,
Yeah,
or something.
and that leads into what I would like to see into this game because, like you mentioned, those war bosses are awesome. Those fights are insane.
I do them even for no reward.
Gigantic.
Yeah.
There's like 20 people going at it trying to kill this like thing that has super.
When that camera
insane
pulls
mechanics.
back,
right?
The Walking Dead
It's on.
is such a cool fight. It's such a cool fight, and it's like I only get to see that when I'm fighting the world boss, but we know that they have the ability to make bosses like that, and it would be cool to see an end-game mechanic where we fight just bosses.
Yep.
Or you know, you got to gear up. You better make sure that you have like your DPS checked. You have to make sure that you've got your items. You're on level, and you can go in on your own.
Jewelry, you know, with the right, you know, resistances or something, you know, if they matter more, you know, later on than they do now versus armor. But you know, like stuff like that, having to like change out the little like jewelry pieces or something would even be just to know you have to fight certain types of bosses or something. That would be cool.
It would be really cool, and they could do it like this. They could literally be like you pop it like a nightmare dungeon. It takes you to an instanced area. You know, you have an area to set up, and then you just go through a gauntlet of 3 or 4 bosses. If you die, you have to start over.
Exactly.
Like, it would be such a cool end game. Like you cannot do this until you are X level sort of thing, right? Because it's just right now all we have is nightmare dungeons, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we are going to talk about season 1 and the new event that's coming in season 1 that will add a little bit more flavor, but it's not that big of a difference to just nightmare dungeons. But we could use another activity that would
for
be
sure.
just to weave in there while you're leveling, right? It doesn't have to be a necessary part. You don't have to do it, but it would be something fun to do side by side.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And you know, a game like this is built on the idea that you are going to spend a lot of time playing after you've beaten the campaign, right? Like, because we have the option to skip campaign on any character after we have completed the campaign once.
Which really reduces the amount of quote end game like types of content, right? Because you're doing essentially the end game content at level 1.
Exactly. Like, and I would say that there's a lot for you to do. The Whispers are a great addition.
Oh yeah,
Whispers are amazing.
100% agree.
However, you really don't gain anything from doing Whispers after 50.
Right.
There's not much. Like, they up the XP drop from the completing all of them and getting your chest, but it's still not really worthwhile to do a Whisper, actively do Whisper stuff.
No, not really. There's no monumental, like the time that you're going to spend with that, like doing either like the random Whisper quest in the world or doing doing the individual Whisper dungeons. Again, like I get to a point though now, especially with the Nightmare Dungeon buffs, there's just really no reason to be wasting your time running around with Whispers. And again, it's not like you're getting great loot out of it. It's just as random as any other loot drop in the game, whether it be dungeons or Hell Tides or whatever. They're really, and that, I guess that would be my just want to throw this in here, like gear in terms of, and I want to get your guys' take on this, just like the idea of like dedicated places to either get sort of either unique drops or just concentrated loot drops to give us a reason to do specific things, because as it stands, world bosses are fun, but what really is the point of them? They're not, like, and from my experience, they're not giving you a ton of experience, and the world boss drops with the caches are again just another random loot drop. I have yet to get anything from a world boss that was significant or game changing like that, or from the Tree of Whispers. Most of my good loot drops have come from just something completely random in a nightmare dungeon, or from a Helltide chest, which are right now the best source of getting concentrated like ancestral gear. But I want to hear from you guys about gear in general. Like, would you like to see more of a gear farming approach where it's like, oh, I can do this activity and know that there's a chance for me to get this type of thing?
I would, because, you know, like, I specifically have no, like, experiential reason to complain or be like, oh, they should change the system, because, like, if I start doing that, Miles is going to be like, shut up. Every 5 minutes we kill a spider, you get a fucking unique. but that makes me see the flip side of it, though, right? Where like Mal's over there, like, God, can I just get the one thing with crit that I need, please, for the love of God, for like 2 months? And I mean, if you like talk about the world bosses, what you could do is have them give a specific token item that's just universal for killing world bosses or whatever, or specific world bosses give slot token items, and you get X number of them over an amount of time. And obviously, you can only get like one, maybe two, if one drops from the cache and one drops from the boss, but like per reset. But say you get enough of those, you can go buy the specific slot unique chance that you want. And it doesn't necessarily guarantee you might get it. Maybe, or it could. It depends on which way you want to go with it. But if it doesn't guarantee it, it could be something like you go and you try to get pants, and you don't get temerity, you get the shadow damage ones as a rogue or something like that instead. And you're like, oh damn it, gotta kill the world boss like 3 more times or whatever it is.
So I'm going to preface this by saying I actually personally don't think we should have any way to target farm uniques. And I'll get into why I think that here in a second, but I want to preface as to what I think about loots right now, and the fact that I'm almost absolutely positive that everything aside from Nightmare Dungeons and Outside Chests, because we have gotten confirmation that their loot tables are a little different, everything else is just a random loot table. It has no weights on what you can get or what is guaranteed to drop or anything in that regard. Everything just sort of drops. And I'm almost positive, and even in regards to those Helltide chests and Nightmare Dungeons, that you are not guaranteed to get anything. That it is maybe a higher chance of it being a legendary ancestral item or a legendary sacred item, depending on what tier you're on. But you're not guaranteed to get one throughout.
Yeah, you're just guaranteed to get a legendary, and I think what is it, a magic? Is that what yellow items are? You're guaranteed to get that when you get to the end. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So you get one legendary, one rare, but it's not even necessarily good.
Yeah, and this actually brings up a good topic here, because at the end of dungeons, at the end of a Nightmare Dungeon specifically, you always get those 2 rewards, and you get your XP and you get gold, right? And those are guaranteed rewards at clear Nightmare Dungeons. So for those of you that do not know, uniques have to roll as the highest rarity item you can get before it is determined whether or not will be a unique. So, for example, if I am doing a Tier 4 Nightmare Dungeon, World Tier 4 Nightmare Dungeon, and I get to the end of it, and my 2 items are rolling, the legendary item has to roll as a legendary ancestral item first, and then it has a chance of becoming a unique item. So that is how uniques are chosen right now. They originally start off as just regular legendaries with the highest rarity that you can possibly get, and then they have a chance to roll into uniques. And the reason I say I don't think we should be able to target farm uniques right now is there's just not enough in the game. If you could target farm uniques, it would trivialize a lot of builds.
That's true. That's why I was saying you could go in a as grindy a direction as you want with something like tokens, or as targeted as you want, or as giant bucket. So you could just have to get a lot of them, and you don't get to pick which slot, and it's just I hope I get the one I want. You could go in either direction.
Some of these uniques are insanely strong, and they are build defining, and I feel like for uniques that fundamentally change the way a class is played, they need to be one of 2 things. They need to either be so far into left field into how they change the class that you have to change your build entirely to play around them, but it's still really, really good. Or they need to have a lower drop chance and only increment the effectiveness of the build. They cannot define a build to that extent, because the issue comes into play where some of these builds literally cannot be played unless you have the uniques, like the full bear build, right? Without the chest piece or the helmet, you can't play that build.
That's true. When I got that chest piece to drop, I was like, yee!
It's just fundamentally, it's a completely different game for if you've gotten that build or not, if you've gotten that unique or if you've not gotten that unique. But if you don't get that unique, you just can't play the build the same way. It doesn't do damage the way you want it to.
That's why I would like to see an end game.
Want it to.
Because if you had an end game where you have boss gauntlets or raids or something like that, where traditionally that's where you go for specific gear. You know what I mean? Then
Right.
I could see that stuff. Okay, well, if I need this helmet, I got to keep targeting that raid every week, or
See, and that leads into what I think that they should do with loot is I think it would be a lot more interesting for not a chance to target farm uniques per se, but give us an activity where the only thing that will drop is legendaries.
Yes, at like high end legendaries. Yes.
And that way, because they're all legendaries, they're all guaranteed legendaries, some of them will have a chance to roll unique. And so you will end up seeing more uniques through this activity, but you also aren't going to see a huge influx of uniques or get to pick exactly what unique you want.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you get to pick and choose what you get loot-wise, you're not playing a looter.
That's true.
Game at that point. Right?
That is true.
Because if all I'm going to do is just do an activity that lets me grab exactly what I want, so that I can play whatever I want, and then after I've done that, I'm going to move on.
Yeah, and to that end, I think what makes me think of like tokens and target things is I come from games where the loot is pooled, and this game loot is not pooled, so it really doesn't. You don't really have to target farm, because it's your own loot pool. No one's gonna be competing with you for an item, and nobody's gonna like take it from you because they're a jerk.
Yeah, and I mean, like this is actually something I feel like they could take from Destiny. Destiny also has item levels, and they have activities where if you do them, you are guaranteed to get an item that is a higher item level than your average item level.
Yeah, they need that too because it's rare for me to get something that's higher than 775 ish.
And that is another reason why I feel like there needs to be another tier of loot because between what is it like 725 and 800, or I mean the highest we can get is like what 820.
820 is the highest.
So actually, people have been getting loot that's over 820 recently. I saw a screenshot that was at 822. So I think 825 might be the highest.
Yeah. I have an 815 crossbow on my rogue and an 820 main hand. So I know that for sure.
That is such a huge gap.
Oh yeah.
Between all of this everything from I think it's 695 or somewhere around there can drop ancestral to like 825 can drop ancestral, and that's a gigantic loot gap. There's no loot tier in between those item levels. Yeah, and
they need something.
Every activity I do has a chance of dropping an item in that range. The closer you get to the highest of that tier for all of your slots, the significantly less likely you are to get an upgrade. And when you're spending all this time between levels 75 or whatever to 100, and you're not getting any upgrades as you're leveling up, it feels bad.
Yeah, and you're already having to, high roll and roll, 3 out of 4 of the correct affixes you need. And then, it really feels bad when you do all of that and then you look at the item level and you're like, oh man, that is not even usable.
And on the regard to affixes, how do you guys feel about affixes? What are your thoughts on the way affixes work and what we can do with those?
I'm cool with it and being able to change just the one. And I like that as in terms of resources, it's one of those things that encourages you to go play with other players and be in Helltide and go out in the world because you need the Forgotten Souls in order to re-roll those on the piece of gear.
And also gives you a reason for gold, right? That's typically where the biggest gold sink is coming from. That's literally why, because I have a ton of materials right now.
Oh yeah,
more materials today. I'm literally dumping rawhide out of my pockets.
Yeah, me too.
To go to the blacksmith. So like now, I pretty much just sell all my gear because I just want to, in the event that I need to re-roll affixes on new gear, that's what becomes the most expensive thing in the game easily. So like, I don't have a problem with that. That's the system necessarily. I do feel like it would be nice to know what's possible to roll on a particular gear. Like we know, like if you obviously go online, but within the game, it'd be nice to know because a lot of people don't realize that if they're trying to re-roll for a certain stat type on a gear, they won't know. The casual players, they won't know that, I can't get armor on this piece, or I can't get weapon damage on this piece, or or vulnerable on this piece, things like that. Like it would be nice to have to be able to see a pool within the game that shows you like what is possible on each individual piece of gear. That would be great information to have. But I don't, as of right now, yeah, I do like them. I do feel like it really does give you a lot of build diversity. Because especially you have 4, right? So like the ability to say like if I want to go all in on vulnerable damage, I want to go all in on critical chance, critical damage, or really stack my armor. I think right now the affix system is fine where it's at.
I would agree with that.
See, okay, so I guess this puts me as the odd person out in this discussion then, because personally, I think there's a lot of issues with affixes that need to be changed, and Dylan, you did harp on one of them. There's no way in game to see what's going to roll on any item that you have. You just have to either go online or compile your own database of. Well, let's see. I can get crit chance on my gloves, and I can get attack speed on my gloves. Can I get these anywhere else? Well, I haven't gotten anything that dropped with them yet, so I guess we'll just see.
Wait and see, yeah.
And there's that, but there's also the fact that right now, let's be honest, most of there are absolutely necessary affixes you have to get on your gear in order to be competitive.
I mean, there's a reason that I'm approaching 90 on my rogue, and I'm still rocking a 615 neck.
Yep.
If I lose those stats, there's no point to getting a better one.
And jewelry is a lower contender in this regard because the item level of your jewelry really doesn't make that big of a difference, except as long as you are breaking the item tier threshold.
Yeah.
Because then after you've reached that highest tier, the rolls are consistent regardless of what item level things drop at.
Exactly, however, which is why that 615 neck plays, because 2 upgrades kicks it to 625 and it's in the next one.
Yep. And I believe that's the last one, right? 625? No, 725.
Yeah.
725 is the last one. And so if you get anything above 725, it's like, if it's a jewelry piece and it's above 725 and it has the stats you want, keep it. There's no point in having a higher roll if it's not stats that you want. It doesn't make a difference because the items you wear do not have any effect on what items you get. And thing I will say, however, though, is that does not hold true for armor or weapons for that regard, because both of those have a extra stat, armor having armor and weapons having damage per second. That is heavily affected by item level. So in that regard, typically you're rolling for trying to find those pieces that fit your build, and in a lot of cases, that's really hard when you have 4 affixes rolling, and there are a lot of affixes in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it just goes to say that we need a way to either target affixes or at least see what affixes we're working with. And I swear to God, if I have to go back to that occultist in 2 seasons and I am still rolling blind and I get to see doubles of an affix I already have, I'm going to absolutely lose it.
I wouldn't mind seeing if you're talking about targeting affixes in some way. I wouldn't mind seeing the sigil system double over with that. So like, okay, we don't get all these like beneficial things, or sometimes vulnerable. I'm not going to get to use it or whatever. And how I was saying earlier that that just makes me want to re-roll it, and I don't like the dust attrition. Well, okay, but if on the flip side we tie gear affixes in some way to those too, you could look at the sigil and go, okay, it's got this thing that's going to really mess me up, but ooh, I can
guaranteed this
affix. Ooh, and that gives you only 3 you got to like really worry about or something like that. You know what I mean? And I think some system like that would be like really, really cool. And it would also give a little bit more play to wanting to be in nightmares too, than just, yay, I get more glyph XP and I get, maybe a slightly higher bit of a chance for a unique. It would give it a little bit more play. I think, a little more life.
100% agree with that. I mean, they could even tie it into strongholds or something like that, for example. Each area of the map has its own unique, like, items that drop, right? So have unique affixes tied to that or something of similar like that. I mean, like, it's something that can be played around with. It's a very cool idea. I think it's a really great idea, actually. And it's definitely something that can be worked around. I love strongholds personally, too.
Yeah, they are fun.
Awesome.
Yeah, it could be
I would
cool
like
if
to
like
see,
they got attacked, and if you go defend it, hey, guess what? This affix is like a guaranteed affix or
or
something.
this
that you
weapon
get.
type is guaranteed to
Yeah,
drop or something.
That would be
Yeah.
Like,
massive.
that would
Yep.
be great. And then you could get people there like the Legion events, but all just like, man, you like that affix too? What up?
Yeah, we're all looking for the same thing here. Yep, but it's just a couple. It's like small things, right? It doesn't really. It just quality of life changes that make it a little bit easier
Yeah.
to go about while we're playing the game. But that
Yeah, they're
leads
not far
into
off from being on point. They're
yeah, no,
almost there.
not at all. These are minor changes. Like, well,
Yeah.
okay, not like minor in the dev cycle, but like minor in the sense that it doesn't require a whole new
Yeah, they don't have to like
implementation.
design something from the ground up. They have the core elements and resources in place somewhere. They just have to
Put them
build
all
a new
together.
thing with them somewhere else, And
Yep.
yeah, that's not the easiest thing to do, and it will take time, but it's possible.
Yep. And with these talks of affixes, every build has different affixes that they're looking for. We talked about that there are some affixes that you're almost always looking for, like vulnerable damage, critical damage, and if you're not running a dot build, crit chance, stuff like that. But in that regard, everybody here is playing a different build. What are your guys' favorite builds?
Death Trap Rogue.
Yeah, it's hard for me to say because I've mainly focused on my main character, and I haven't really gone and delving into every single character in the game. This is the trappings of trying to stream this game, create content for it, and also have a job that I work 40 hours plus a week.
I do like
Oh, yeah.
Frostwork. That is the one I would say of all the other things that I've kind of like dabbled in. Frost Sorcerer is just fun, but I'm biased, and I've played a Frost Mage in Warcraft since vanilla, so.
And I have messed around with the Whirlwind Barbarian, and just the clear power is just phenomenal. It is.
Yeah, but that single target is.
It's great. Yeah, I literally like boss fights have been absolutely tedious with this character that I'm messing around with, but the AOE clear is just disgusting.
Yep. And I do like that balance of AoE versus a single target that they've definitely gotten into. It's a lot of like, if you're going full AoE, you're gonna have a hard time when it comes to those boss fights. But
I think that's why I like my Death Trap Rogue build that I got from Max Roll, because it's got like really strong AoEs, but you're still twisting blades Rogue at the baseline, so you're still getting a single target damage in on them. That's good.
Yeah. And I think that's why Rogue is still keeping it solid, first place on the class leaderboards. In that regard, is they're just so flexible, and a lot of people are really enjoying it, which is funny because Sorcerer is still the most played class in the game, but it's also the most switched off class in the game.
Interesting.
So people are actually starting up the game, booting the game up, and picking Sorcerer, and then switching off of Sorcerer either before they hit endgame or right after hitting endgame and going to different classes.
That's funny.
And it's like, that you should definitely look into that, Blizzard. But I definitely feel for you there, Dylan, because I know for a fact I've worked 40-hour work weeks as well, and we go off and we stream, we play our characters. I have probably spent too much time with this game, though, even time that I probably should be spending doing something else, but don't tell my boss. If I'm not playing, I'm watching Diablo. Sometimes even when I am playing, I'm watching Diablo. And you can ask my girlfriend. There are times where I'm sitting on my phone and she goes, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm looking at builds, or I'm making a build, or I'm tweaking my build." It's like Diablo. There's a lot of accessibility. There's a lot of stuff you can do outside of the game for games like this. When there's a lot of math involved and there's a lot of thought involved. Typically, there's a lot of stuff you can do when you're not playing the game. And that's my personal favorite. It's one of the things I love about these types of games.
And that's probably what got me really wanting to stream this one and do this as a main content game, when I haven't really had that since I played Tarkov. And Tarkov was a game for me that was like that, where it's like, what you looking at? Huh? I was watching some dude murder people in Tarkov a different way than I do. Getting some ideas. What?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, I didn't know this. I didn't know this combination of skills could be used this way.
I didn't know you could jump up there and shoot people and they never see you. What? Exactly. And so with Diablo, it's kind of like the same thing. It's like, wait, you can do what now, and then kill people in the dungeon better. What? I love it.
It's food for thought. It's room for improvement.
I like things you
play,
can think about.
Exactly. Right. And I play Sorcerer. I play mainly Sorcerer, but personally, I really only care about the Fire Sorcerer skills. So I've been trying to make Fire work as best as I can. And I've done a whole bunch of different iterations of Fire Sorcerer. And I could still say Fire Sorcerer is my favorite, even if it is underpowered compared to the rest of the Sorcerer variations. But in my heart, always will live there is Bear. Big Bear, big boss, roaring and slamming the ground. It will just always be copium. Like 100%. Like I will never not enjoy hitting that pulverized button with 12 stacks and hearing the bear just at the top of his lungs and everything just crushed underneath the weight of his paws. And it's like that's just actually like it's my turn. I turn my brain off and I just enjoy it, you know. So that'll always live rent free in my heart as far as builds go. But there's a lot to play in this game. There's a lot of different. There's only five classes right now, and we know that there are more coming. But all those classes have so many different variations, like we talked about earlier. Dylan brought up the diversity of builds. You can play whatever you want.
Yeah, I was playing a Rupture Rend Barbarian, and it was working until like they made some changes. Where it was like, oh man, I'm gonna have to rearrange boards and get affixes changed. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna play a different class instead because it's not season 1 yet, so we'll put the barb aside for now, kind of thing. But yeah, I was playing something totally different, and it was working. Like I remember when you and I were playing like an early part, and we were like approaching like 50, or we were around 50, and you asked me like what my dot was doing for like my bleed, and it was like something around like 50, 60K over 5 seconds. And you were like, the what now? Because you were like telling me, man, I'm finally getting these big burns, and I didn't even know what I was doing really. Like I knew what I was doing, but I didn't know what the number was I was putting out. And then you asked me, and I looked, and you were just like, wait, what? And that was fun.
That's the thing is like, if I can give any advice to anybody that's planning on picking up this game, it's don't dig too deep into it unless you are looking for the actual optimal way to play. If you just want to enjoy your time and play the game, don't pay attention to YouTube videos. Don't pay attention to the forums. Don't pay attention to Reddit.
I mean, except
just
for us.
Play the game. Let us do that for you. Let us do that for you. Because I'll be honest, there are some salty motherfuckers in this game. Like, for real. I'm gonna be honest. The forums and the Reddit are like just awash with people that can't seem to get over the fact that
$1 billion company. My God,
why can't I just push this button and everything die? I don't understand. It 100% can harp on your enjoyment of the game, and so don't deal with that if you don't really want to get into the nitty gritty. There's so much more you can do in this game without even dealing with all of that. And if you want to be at the top of the leaderboards, putting out big boy damage and constantly keeping track of all of that stuff, you're gonna want to get into that. But make sure to really try to look on the positive side of it and pay attention to like, okay, well, I can work with this, I can work with this, I can work with this.
And try to understand what it is you're doing, not just copy pasta, run through, like
exactly.
If you truly try to understand why it works the way it works, you may find that, like, to go back to, our rogue friend Lance, who went from pure twisting blades to like his like shadow imbuement thing that he's doing with it. That's not somebody's build. He was just like, I understand what you're telling me here at this build. And what if I did this? And then boom, it worked, And so just try to understand what it is, if you're going to go try to do the tippy tippy top, because sometimes the tippy tippy top could be tippy tippy topper.
I'm gonna write that down. I'm writing that down. I want to put that on a shirt.
I might be changing the title of this episode, honestly, with that.
Tippy top.
the tippy tip of the tippy topper. But I feel like that's a great introduction to the game, and I feel like we should probably start getting into the deep meat, what we're all here for. If you have been paying attention to this game, and if you are caught up, and we've just been talking about things that you already know, let's go ahead and talk about things you might not know, and things you might know but might not have the best idea of. let's get into the patch and what's to come. So, Dylan, Smokey, have you guys paid attention to the developer update that was just the other day?
Oh, I was watching that. That was good.
I took notes. It was so funny because I was literally at work and we had a big town hall meeting at work, which meant I didn't have to actually physically be doing work. So I was able to pay attention to the town hall and also the developer live stream at the same time, lined up beautifully. So I was able to take the notes and to get into all of it, put a video out. And yeah, very intriguing season of the Malignant.
We love that. That name it just rolls off the tongue. I love the way it sounds personally.
It's a fantastic name.
I think my favorite part of the whole thing, though, the whole developer stream, was every time Rod Ferguson would come in, because like the dev dudes, they be on that math, and he'd come in and be like, "So what you're really saying is," it was
oh God,
so good.
The Rod jokes. Oh.
Yeah, I actually still don't understand how the Malignant tunnels work, because he just recommended that, as a 40-year-old man, I'm getting close to his age, and I might start having to like have my Malignant tunnel looked at.
That got very real.
It got very dark and real very fast, and so I don't actually know how those work.
You could tell nobody was expecting it too. You could tell nobody was expecting it.
It was wonderful.
He said that, and everybody just looked at him. You realize we're live right now, right? It's like, did somebody not go over his notes beforehand?
Right? He's like, look, senior vice president means I say the things I say. I meant what I said. Malignant tunnels, get them looked at.
Rod has always been that way, though. He's always been that way. And if you guys watch the campfire chat, also, he was the same way on the campfire chat, too.
Yeah, it's great.
He literally just says whatever he wants to say, and it's hilarious.
Right.
It breathes a little life into those
for videos. Sure.
Though I will say the community manager is doing a great job.
Yeah.
As far as all that goes, he always makes sure to get in the good questions and let everybody know that they are paying attention to the forums and every other area of the internet where talks of Diablo are happening.
Yeah.
But let's go ahead and get into the patch. So patch 1.0.3 came out a couple weeks ago now, or was it last week, the week before? I am so bad with time, I'll be honest. I almost missed the developer update because I thought it was today. It's not so yesterday. And then Smokey sent me a message. It was like, wow, this developer update is heated. And I was like, what?
Oh, no.
Yeah, the chat was popping off, man. They were... I thought I was being mean when I said, like 3 times, can someone address the sigil dust attrition problem, please? That's all I was asking. I thought I was being like a little extra with that, but no, you should have seen what people were actually saying. It was wild.
There's the wave of L's every time Diablo Immortal was mentioned, or
they were not happy about that.
No, they were not happy at all. And it's like, honestly, they should just mute those chats. I'm gonna be honest. They provide nothing for the overall content, in my opinion. But then everybody else would be mad about the fact that the chat was muted, and you just got to the point. You just got to live with it, right? I felt so bad for the Diablo Immortal guys because
I know.
They were just trying to do their best to tell everybody about the Diablo Immortal update, and the chat was like, "When's D4? Get off the screen! Diablo Immortal was a mistake." And it's like, geez.
People were even like reported for not correctly marked content categories, and I'm just like, wow, people. Honestly, chill.
But one thing I have seen is that the loud minority is always the loud minority, and there are a lot of people that are enjoying this game immensely and enjoying Diablo Immortal immensely, and just take everything else you see with a grain of salt, because that they don't always represent the overall player base. But so patch 1.0.3 was the biggest patch we've had since the game released. It changed a bunch of the ways that the classes worked, and buffed some things because we had a wave of nerfs right beforehand. But it is not even the biggest patch that we can expect, because we got word that they are going to have an even bigger patch when Season 1 drops on the day of the 18th. That'll be the patch that will be setting up for Season 1. And we'll get some stuff in the Eternal Realm that'll actually be able to take advantage of, which we'll get into here in a bit. But before that, I want to go over patch 1.0.4, which had a few minor details. Dylan, you seemed very happy about a couple of those. You want to take it from here?
Yeah. Let me actually pull up the patch. My apologies.
Good. This is a podcast, baby. We get to do all this live. And I mean, I know for a fact the podcasts that I listen to, I actually find it hilarious and enjoyable when you get the little excerpts in between, of things just happening. Or let me take a sip of my water real quick.
Yeah, so the biggest thing with the patch obviously was the Nightmare Dungeon changes. Because we talked about this earlier, the XP grind after level like 70 and into Torment difficulty was just so slow. And they needed to do something. And so what they did was they significantly increased the XP gains. I want to say it was like 100, what was it? 1 point or 180%.
It was big.
Yeah, it was huge. And so almost double the XP that you were getting in Nightmare Dungeons previously. And more importantly, they also added a nice quality of life option, which was the ability to teleport directly to the dungeon from the sigil. Because in the past, it was like you literally had to go take a waypoint and then mount over to the dungeon. Now it's boom, boom, get to the dungeon pretty quickly. It made getting your XP gains and getting your XP farming in huge. That was amongst the class changes and balance changes. That to me was the single biggest change from that. What was the thing that most benefited you, so to speak?
That they fixed the issue where in Cultist Refuge, Howling Warren, and Lubin's Rest dungeons, if you fought the Butcher and you did not win, you also didn't get to complete the dungeon, because that happened to me a few times and I didn't even know that's what was happening. I was just like running around the place like, okay, I have not only done the events, I've uncovered every little fog of war. I've sniffed that tree over there. I even carved some bark off that one. What's going on? And it's nothing. I'd go around the whole thing over and over. Like, okay, I guess I get to leave now. And I didn't even know until they released the patch notes for this patch and said they fixed that. I was like, oh, it's because I was intentionally dying to Butcher because I didn't want to fight him for 10 minutes in a nightmare and whatnot. So and die anyway on the last phase when he double chops me. I was like, sure, that's good. They fixed that. So I think that's probably actually my favorite part, low-key.
To go a little off topic before I go in topic, the Butcher fighting against the Butcher on a Firewall Sorcerer is literally my worst nightmare. Can't be CC'd. He never goes unstoppable. Even though technically, I feel like if you can't be CC'd, you should always be unstoppable.
Right.
But you can't stop him. You can't slow him down. You can't keep him in one area at a time unless you're circling around him and literally tanking every single one of his hits.
There is only one way in which you can kind of juke him a little bit. And exactly, you have to have a pole. He has to be near pole, and you have to just go circle around him and shit. That's literally all you can do.
Honestly, I know a huge annoyance. He should have a stagger like the rest of the other bosses, in my opinion.
Yeah.
To go back,
he just puts a barrier.
Yes, I don't understand that. But instead, to go back on topic, they fixed combustion, which is huge for Firewall builds, which is actually really hilarious because
they fixed Frozen Orb too.
Yeah, I had switched off of. I was playing a Meteor build because I was playing Firewall originally, and I was like, it just doesn't feel good. I don't know what's wrong here, but it just feels like I'm not doing good enough damage, so I'm going to switch off. So I switched off and started doing Meteor, and Meteor was fun. And then the patch dropped literally right after I had switched to Meteor. I had done 3 or 4 Nightmare Dungeons with Meteor, and I read the patch notes, and they were like, we fixed combustion, so it's actually reading the bonus now. And I was like, what? And so I had to go and respec back to Firewall to do damage testing. Not to mention that respeccing is disgusting right now. To do a full respec is actually one of the worst things ever. But I had to switch back to Firewall, and they had fixed combustion. The damage was an 87% damage increase overall. It was insane. But they fixed that. That was my best takeaway from the patch, honestly. And then obviously the ability to teleport directly to Nightmare Dungeon saves a lot of time.
Oh, that was so good. But the only thing I think they need to adjust with that, and that was one thing that people were talking a bit constructively about in the live stream, was so there is actually a little bit of an issue with teleporting outside the dungeon versus inside the dungeon. And I think you and I, Mal, had talked at that point. We were saying they need to have maybe like a starting area that you can just like get, prepared in, geared up in, whatever, before you step out and everything starts like affecting you and hitting you, like storm rage and things like that. Because there are actually places that, and I don't know what they would do to fix that necessarily, but there are a few dungeons. I want to say maybe Gulron Slums is one, but I can't remember 100%. But there are a few where there's a bunch of mobs outside, like right outside the door. And if anyone's killing them or a group of people are killing them and you teleport there, right, just meow, your game can crash. And if you're doing a nightmare and you were teleporting there, bye-bye sigil.
Yep.
And I brought this up in my YouTube video talking about the Season 1 releases and the Q&A and the changes and stuff for the developer update. But they talked about possibly making a change to teleporting to Nightmare Dungeons that would allow you to go directly into the dungeon. But this was a mechanic that they implemented just because they had heard players complaining about the fact that they didn't have to go from Nightmare Dungeon to Nightmare Dungeon and walk manually there. And so it was just a quick fix to get in. So it's not by no means the end all for this mechanic. We might see it change again in the future. But
I'm looking forward to that.
Nice patch to give us a little bit of quality of life in regards to that. But I talk a bit more about that in my YouTube video for the Season 1 stuff. So I know, Dylan, you've got one up on too as well. So when we plug all our stuff at the end of the podcast, be sure to let everybody know where they can find that.
I think the other two things they had for fixes for like class fixes was, I didn't know this was affecting me either until they released the patch, but I was playing the other day and I was getting frustrated in Nightmares because I was on my rogue and like I was playing very tactfully, like very carefully, like taking my time. I was using tactics, and I'd still just go instant gibbed. And I'm like, what is happening? And I didn't know that what was actually happening is they fixed an issue where if you were shadow stepping on the rogue and you used it outside of the range of your intended target. So like if it like teleported or moved or anything in that little fraction of a second where you're teleporting to it, you would freeze in place. And I kept dying, like shadow stepping out of stuff. I kept dying instantly. I'm like, what is going on? They fixed that, and I'm super happy. And then the other one they fixed is Barbarian's Earthstriker aspect. It would get consumed if you got buffed by anything else. And so, like, remember how I was saying I used to overpower all the time on my Barbarian, and all of a sudden I don't anymore, and I don't know what's going on? That's what that was.
Yep. And so that's patch 1.0.3. We've also just had patch 1.0.
That stuff's 4. No, that stuff's in 4.
That stuff was in.
That's in the brand new one that just came out, like after DevStream. That's the one that just came out.
There's a few changes in 1.0.4, and a lot of bug fixes. But as far as gameplay fixes go, or gameplay adjustments go, they made it so that Helltide chests can now drop unique items, which I guess they couldn't do that before. Did you guys ever have a unique item drop from a Helltide chest?
No, and we thought, and we were under the impression that we could, so we would go do Helltide, and we would try to get those targeted chests, and apparently we were just getting more mats to reroll affixes with.
I wonder what the loot table looked like for them beforehand. I wonder if we'll ever get any sort of information in regards to what that looked like, because I'm intrigued to figure out why they couldn't drop uniques, if that was intended or if that was a bug issue that they just ended up finding later on, because I can't think of a reason why Helltide chests shouldn't drop uniques to begin with.
Yeah. Unless they just thought it's such an easy and plentiful and quick farm, when the reality is it doesn't get quick, plentiful, and easy until you're at a point where you really just need that unique.
Yeah. They also changed the health pools and damage outputs for a few bosses, Vernard, Broll, and Cyrac. Vernard and Broll being story bosses, so if you've completed the campaign and have no intention of completing it anytime again soon, you don't have to worry about them. But if you are just going through now, you will have an easier time with them. And Cyrac is the dungeon boss for the Frozen Glacier dungeon. Let me see if I can get the exact name for that dungeon real quick. It's an actual dungeon boss. So the Hollow Glacier boss. So that one is a little bit easier to fight now as well. And you got to remember that they have data in regards to these bosses and how many people end up dying to these bosses or how long they take to fight these bosses. So the fact that they are changing these means that they have an unreasonably high kill count comparatively to like all the other bosses in the game. So it's good to see that they are keeping track of that stuff and actually making changes. I want to know how many people died to them though. Like it must have been like a decent amount of people for them to change it, right?
I would think so, because it can't just be a few. They wouldn't do it then, because then everybody else basically be just like poking them and they fall over. So it had to be a fair few people dying to that.
Yep. And lastly, as far as gameplay adjustments go, they increased the cap of crafting materials from 9,999 to 99,999.
Right.
There's a typo in the official 1.0.4 patch notes that says 999 to 9,999 is actually 99,000. It's actually 9,999 to 99,999 because we could already get items up to 99,999. So if you were capped out on Rawhide, congrats. You are no longer capped out on Rawhide.
All right, Dylan, we can collect Rawhide again. Woo!
Rawhide's back in business, baby. Let's go.
But yeah, as far as 1.0.4 goes, there's not really much else in regards to that. Is there anything you guys wanted to cover in, like, actually, as far as those any gameplay changes or bug fixes that impacted you or that you think are important to cover?
I think I covered all the ones for classes that I'm aware of. I'm not so aware of other classes and things that might have happened to them.
Yeah, you can find the official patch notes on the official forums. I will leave a link to them in the description for this podcast so you guys can go and check them out. But that's patch 1.0.4 that came out directly after the developer update. And now let's go ahead and get into Season 1 notes. I don't know about you guys, but I am extremely excited for Season 1.
Yeah, I still want to just know what Malignant Tunnels are really about, because I was just howling when he told that joke. So I know you go down there for something that's good, and then I don't know like where they are.
I'm sorry,
are they
Smokey,
in
but
dungeons?
that is 100%
Are they in the world?
boomer humor. That is 100% boomer humor.
Or like Gen X humor at this point, man. You know.
Whatever you have to tell yourself to sleep at night, Smokey. I'm sorry.
I'm not a boomer. My parents are boomers, man. That's how I know I'm not a boomer.
Hey, you don't have to be a boomer to enjoy boomer humor.
Fair.
But yeah, so as far as Season of the Malignant goes, we've got a new activity, new mechanic, and maybe
new abilities.
Yeah, maybe some new abilities. We know for a fact we've got some new
Malignant
aspects,
abilities.
But let's go ahead and just go down here line for line. Why don't we? Yeah. Right. So season notes, for those of you guys that do not know, Diablo is played in a seasonal model. Seasons mean basically that when a new season comes out, you will have to create an entirely new character to take part in that season. You will not be able to take your existing characters into seasonal content, and when the season ends, your characters that you created for the season will go into the Eternal Realm, which means that you can just play them normally, but they don't have any of the seasonal. They will not be able to access any more seasonal content, and they will not be able to access any future seasonal content. I brought this up in my video because I'm not sure they didn't mention it, but we know for a fact that there's going to be a new mechanic in this season as far as the malignant powers go. Those new
monster can spawn or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Caged hearts. They brought up a lot of names and a lot of stuff in regards to that, but the TLDR is that there is a new item that we can get from fighting these things called malignant elites. And they can be slotted into our jewelry based off of a color socket that will give you various powers.
And one that's like kind of like a prismatic color in that it can be in any socket it can go into.
Yeah, we know that there are slots like vicious slots and stuff like that. I'm assuming that's going to be a red colored slot or whatever. And you're going to be able to slot these caged hearts into these jewelry slots, and they will give you powers. But what we don't know is whether or not you get to keep those after the season ends, because they did mention that they will not bring all seasonal mechanics to the Eternal Realm, and I believe they directly mentioned that they will not be bringing this season's mechanics to the Eternal Realm after the season is over. So
Yeah,
I'll be intrigued to see whether we just lose those entirely, they just disappear, they're gone forever.
I would assume if we say bring a character from, the seasonal realm to the eternal realm, and he had all these like malignant gems and whatnot, I would imagine they would do like one of like two things: just have the sockets revert to normal sockets and have nothing in them, or be just grayed out sockets, like, just how like when you get two of the same aspect, the lesser one grays out. They maybe just do something like that.
Right, because we know for a fact that the seasonal stash will not carry over. Some items in that seasonal stash will be transferable for a limited time in something that's called a temporal stash, and you'll be able to take some of those items out and put them into your eternal stash at the end of the season. But there will not be probably anything seasonal related that you'll actually be able to put into the eternal realm.
Now, am I allowed to be a little bit negative here?
Always.
Okay. I'm going to be honest with you. Okay. While I am excited about just the idea of the season as a whole and resetting everything and starting a new journey and the seasonal journey and even the battle pass stuff, cosmetics, it's going to be fun, right? I'm going to be honest. Like, I love the name of the season. I'm very excited about the story. This mechanic is just okay for me. I didn't like jump out of my seat like, whoa, they're doing this with this particular mechanic of malignant elites, and then you're just kind of farming for basically what is legendary gems, essentially, right? That you're socketing into gear. I don't know about you guys. I mean, I found it a little underwhelming for this first season. Like, I thought that was going to be like the secondary, like it felt like a secondary mechanic to what is a bigger gameplay change. I guess that's the thing I'm hung up on, is that when we talk about a seasonal mechanic, I'm expecting something that like fundamentally changes the way we play the game. This seems kind of situational and something that like, okay, it's cool that we're farming for this like little, this new gem slot item thing, but that's it. There's no real change to the overall gameplay experience in the game. It feels very small to me this first season. Am I weird in thinking that?
No,
I mean, I think the tunnels give that like a basis for actually building to something bigger in a future season, but I also don't disagree with you. You know what I mean? Like, because like it gives them like from the developer side, like, the resource to create something later, like what we're talking about in terms of, say, like a boss gauntlet or something like that, like, which could be a mechanic in the game where, like, you go into, while in a dungeon, we talked about, and then you go into the gauntlet from that dungeon or something. And I think, putting this malignant tunnel mechanic in gives them like the functional basis for something cooler later. But I do think it's underwhelming this season that all that's in it is what's in it.
Yeah, no, I get. I don't want to sound greedy. I don't want to sound like this isn't enough.
No, I'm with you.
I just think that you're telling me this is the gameplay mechanic. The gameplay mechanic this season, in short, is elite enemies can randomly be malignant. You kill them, you kill more enemies, and then you just get the potential to get a literally just a gem, basically a gem.
Yeah,
so and also the ability to spawn the tunnel, because you can target farm with the tunnel. So as I'm reading about them more, because I was the one that missed what was said during the live stream because I was laughing because boomer humor. So the way that works is super elites will buff nearby enemies, and if you fight them in the higher world tiers, you get stronger hearts. Then you can break down hearts into crafting materials to craft new items like invokers, and then you use them at specific places to spawn in the malignant tunnels to spawn malignant elites. And certain dungeons with certain malignants can guarantee a specific type of malignant, and then you can target farm like the item you're trying to get or whatever it is. But I think, that's just like a very small thing on top of the malignant mechanic. That's why I was saying I think it gives them the basis for something cooler later. because it gives them the place for it, but it's not that great.
Let me tell you what I'm pretty positive this is what it is. We need to get something out for season 1. What can we do so that we can get something out that's new, but isn't so resource intensive that it's going to take us 3 more months to actually put together?
Right.
Because like I've mentioned before, this season 0 feels like a beta, and I'm almost positive this is because the game came out too early. If the game did come out too early, there's no way that they have enough time to get a whole new
big thing for the season.
Yeah, and they tried to kind of paint over that with a big XP grind, and everybody's like, no.
But there's not enough in the game to continue season 0.
Exactly.
They can't just continue season 0 until they're ready to get season 1. So they've got to get something out now to get people to keep playing the game.
Yeah.
Also, not being so worthless that it feels like a slap in the face, right?
Yeah, that's why I like the tunnel mechanic, because it's a new developer function. It's not just here's a new paint color and a new name and a different piece of loot,
Right. Because personally, I'm looking at this and I'm going, oh, cool, a new activity. All right, cool. That's what I'll do when because I have to get back up to end game again, and I'm gonna play my character or characters, and I'm gonna get back up to end game, and I'm gonna do it all over again. And by however long it takes me to get to end game, hopefully by then they've gotten some of the bigger problems fixed. Because we know for a fact there's a big patch coming with the release, and they said that if they're going to have big changes, that'll continue after the big patch comes out, because they will be making changes whenever necessary. Somebody asked, because somebody literally asked in the Q&A section, how often are they going to be making changes during, are they going to make changes mid-season? Are they going to make changes in between seasons?
Yeah, they said they were trying to get it more down to a regular cycle now, which definitely kind of goes in with what you're saying about season 0. Does seem more like a beta, because the way they were just with the patches.
They're trying to get this game stable. They're trying to make things balanced. They're trying to get the game situated to build the foundation, the full foundation for the new mechanics to come.
Right.
And you can make the argument, why didn't they do this before the game released? And you're right. Why didn't they do this before the game released? But game's out now.
Yeah. They would have had to have hired a significant QA section to test the game the way we were talking about, people playing 3 days solid, no sleep and stuff like that expose cracks in the game that you wouldn't see otherwise. They would have had to have had that in place, but they didn't. So here we are. It is what it is. And I think season 2, I'm looking forward to the, whatever the mechanic will be in season 2, or whatever end game stuff they might add in season 2, really, because the fact that they're adding a new area within an area spawny thing with target farming, it's okay, they've got something they can work with. Let's see what you do down the road. That's how I kind of feel about it.
Because let's be honest, they probably have a mountain of tech debt at this point.
Right? Oh, absolutely.
There's probably a gigantic amount of stuff they have to get to, and there's going to be a backlog. They could put out a gigantic season 1 and have a bunch of stuff that's busted and broken that needs to be fixed and changed. And all that's going to do is add to the tech debt.
Yep. The more stuff you make that has to be fixed on top of a thing that if it was fixed, you wouldn't have had to fix the thing you added. Tech debt on tech debt on tech debt. It's just...
I'm taking this as them saying, we know we're behind. We know there's a lot we need to do. Here's something to tide you over for a bit while we fix the game.
Yep. And just bear with us, because we do know, and we're getting there. It's just not as fast as either of us would like. That's what it smells like.
Yep. But I hope that answers your question, Dylan.
I think it did, just a bit, yeah.
I mean, they do have the seasonal journey feature, which I think is so for me, story standpoint and stuff. I like story. So the fact that they have 7 chapters of a journey with different stuff you can do, different activities you can do that allow you to collect new legendary aspects, it gives everybody a reason to do it, but it also gives people like me that want to see story stuff happen,
It's something else to do.
Exactly. It's a thing to do.
And I feel like that's everybody's biggest complaint right now is there's not enough to do.
Yeah, and so I feel like, yeah, okay, the mechanic was underwhelming, but we could see where they're going with it. But hey, seasonal journey features pretty cool. I think it'll be pretty cool, and you don't even have to have the battle pass to have it. Same as like battle passes, only gonna give you cosmetics when paid. Like everything else, you can unlock without paying. You know, it's not a pay to win in any way. That's great. So they're not like, they're not even insulting us with anything in terms of like, hey, give us more money, by the way, even though we know we're behind. You know, they're literally like doing everything as right as they can. I feel like.
Yep, and we probably sound like Blizzard apologists at this point, but you know what? We got
Nah.
the title. But let's go ahead and take another quick break. I have to feed my cat, so I will be right back, and we will be right back.
I'll be right back real quick.
And we're back again. I accidentally punted the heck out of my cat while I was feeding her. I hope she does not. Yeah, no, she doesn't make any sounds. She just sort of looks at me and runs away real sad. And honestly, that hurts a little bit more.
Yeah.
But
Damn.
hopefully she doesn't try to murder me in my sleep now, because I don't know any times I've accidentally punted her. But yeah, I'm assuming it's getting a little tiring at this point. But okay, so we brought up the seasonal journey in the before we went to break. Either of you want to cover that real quick?
I mostly just like that the battle pass, or that's beyond the season journey that you unlock for like cash, is just cosmetics, titles. Everything else that's in the journey is in the journey, and you get it like cosmetic wise, which I really like, because yes, there are some cool transmogs in the game, but there could be more. Yes, we got some cool ones from the drops, but there could be more. I always like more. I always like style. Plus, my chat says I on my rogue I look like a Canadian Mountie, and I was trying to look like Red Arrow, yo.
Here for that. Yeah, no, I like the idea of it gives you now an additional progression system alongside leveling. It's only going to make the leveling process even more fun, because you got a whole new tab to check out now, right? To check your battle pass progression, you're getting not just at every level with that, with the favor that you're getting from the seasonal journey and progressing that. You're also getting battle pass experience with that. That's going to progress that, get those urns, or get the smoldering ashes to unlock the seasonal blessings. Like, yeah, there's so much to it, and it's going to make leveling so much more fun, because you're progressing more than just your levels and getting new skill points, new paragon points. There's a whole other progression system now that you're going to be going through, and I think that's going to make the game even more engaging, especially when considering like you can progress the seasonal journey with multiple activities. It's not just doing dungeons, not just doing hell times, whatever. It's crafting, it's completing this dungeon, completing this stronghold, whatever it might be. There's gonna be so many different ways.
Completing a cellar.
Yeah, a cellar. Like
collect some herbs.
Yeah, every aspect of the game, from salvaging materials, everything is going to be included in that seasonal journey, encouraging you to embrace every corner of what the game has to offer.
Yep, and we know that they've already said that you do not have to do everything in a chapter of the seasonal journey in order to progress to the next chapter. There will be 7 chapters total, and all of the chapters will have different objectives to complete, just so you can make sure to get as much fun out of the game as you want to. There's nothing saying you can't complete all the objectives in every chapter either, if you just want to do that. It's just that saying that you do not have to complete them all to go to the next chapter, which is, I think, a great quality of life thing. Because for some people, I know they never want to play PvP.
That's true.
Being able to skip over the PvP objective means that they can still progress without having to go do something they don't like to do.
And I think in terms of like being able to progress through something that does have a PvP requirement by doing something else, for me, I see that as an accessibility feature, because, if you're someone like, we were talking about our friend who has CP, his reaction times aren't going to be as fast through no fault of his own. And then he wouldn't be able to do PvP requirement, wouldn't be able to get all the stuff. And that would really suck, because the FOMO and just, being excluded from an activity. But they've given multiple ways to do stuff. So like you said, if you don't like PvP, or PvP is something you can't physically do, then they got you covered.
Yeah, and I mean, not to mention the lag that always happens in PvP zones.
True.
But,
and then to go back to when you were saying, they want you to like explore all parts of the game. When you guys were talking about that in various ways, one of the things I also like is that in addition to like the renown and the fog of war and all that stuff carrying over from your tune that's done that stuff on Eternal or whatever. I like that in addition to that, they're also telling us that not every season is going to start in Kyovashad. We're not going to just, it's not going to be the meme of, Red Dead 2 starting in the snow, oh man, I got to start the game in the snow again,
This one will. Just heads up to everybody. This one will.
This one will, but they've said in the future. So like, this one will, but not all future seasons will be, starting in Kyovashad. So we'll get different experiences as the seasons go on, which I think is cool.
Yep. And this game does have a battle pass. For those of you that did not know, battle passes are, I feel like, just that's something we just have to live with now in online games.
But at least this one's not pay to win.
Yeah, this one is not pay to win.
That's the key part, right? It's just
cosmetics, mounts, mount armor,
just cosmetic. Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna get it because we did like the deluxe, I think, so we could play early. So we'll be getting that, and we'll be getting the mounts and the armor. So cool. But other than that, like if you're not into that stuff, there's absolutely no reason to think, oh my God, I have to have the battle pass to do the best in this game I can. No, you can be the best rogue or best bear or best necromancer you can be or whatever it is you're playing without spending a cent.
Yep.
Yeah, but I will say that premium head does look sick. And smoky with the smoking like animation on it.
Yeah.
And the horse armor too is dope.
Yeah, I'm a mount farmer. We all know this.
Yep. There's a surprising number of mounts in this game that you.
Yo, I got that spectral one the other day out of a nightmare dungeon. Ooh, ooh.
You get it in a nightmare dungeon? I thought you could only get a Legion events. That's good to know.
Yeah. So if you didn't know that, that's a thing. It popped up. At the very end of It just, how like you get the 2 pieces of loot. It was a third thing next to the 2 pieces of loot. I was like, what?
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was dope as hell.
That means that there's a chance for us to see more cosmetics in Nightmare Dungeons like that in the future, which I think is really cool.
That makes me excited because me and like on Warcraft, I go back every reset every week and I'm like farming old stuff for mounts and stuff. Like last week I got one I've been trying to get for like 20 years and I like lost my shit. So I'm a sucker for stuff like that.
That's how I'm gonna feel about Shaco in the next 20 years. Because unfortunately, I didn't get into that glitch that was happening yesterday. So sad. Yep.
Yeah, me and the Harlequin hat.
Yep. On that battle pass, there are going to be 27 free reward tiers, and those free reward tiers will include cosmetics as well. So even if you don't feel like buying the premium battle pass, you will be able to enjoy some.
Yeah, they say that'll be stuff like Artisan's Tunic and quote low fantasy stuff, whereas
just for role playing
stuff will be like epic kind of things, like so it's not like gotta have.
Yeah, I believe they specifically said like role play gear.
Yeah, pretty much.
To look like other things.
Yeah,
but I feel like we're getting closer and closer to Lance's dream of wearing a t-shirt and jeans.
Oh, I know.
And destroys demons around sanctuary.
Right. He just wants to have that like backwards cap and his style, like his sunglasses. Oh my goodness.
Yep. But there's also the new blessings, seasonal blessings. Did you guys get to take a chance to take a look at that the chart that they showed?
So you can get buffs to your experience gains, your salvaging gains, your gold gains,
durations. That was my favorite.
Yeah, absolutely. We do see there's also levels to each one, which makes me curious. And I mentioned this in the video. Will you have enough blessings to be able to max level everything, or will you have to make a determination on what you're going to focus on?
Yeah, we don't know how many smoldering ashes you'll be able to get out of the battle pass. So
I would think it might be a few because they also have pass skips in it. Like you can skip some of these levels. So I would think if they've got a mechanic like that in there, that makes me think you should be able to invest in the things you want over time. I would think.
Yeah. And we assume that there's probably going to be more smoldering ashes per battle pass tier as you go up on the battle pass as well. And I mean, there are 100 tiers of the battle pass, so I would not be surprised if there were more than enough smoldering ashes.
And if there weren't, I wouldn't be surprised if that's one of those things that goes into one of their patches on a regular cycle versus, one of their quick patches like they've been doing in Season 0. So,
yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think? I don't think there's any reason for them to limit the number of ashes you get. Like, why I don't see a reason for them to not allow you to get all the full upgrades for all of these these blessings, because I mean they're just small buffs. They're not it's not like they're super game changing buffs.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like, if it was something that's like the damage you're doing, which, I mean, granted, elixir duration borders on that, but it's not really, because a half an hour elixir is kind of, you just pop another one, farm more. Half an hour elixir is already kind of low, so that would just be a quality of life thing more than more damage thing. So, I mean, yeah, there's really no reason to gatekeep those in any way.
No. Yeah, and I believe we actually got a little bit of a spoiler in regards to the elixir duration, because Rod did mention that those having your elixir go from a 30-minute elixir to a 45-minute elixir. And if you look at the first rank of the chart there, it's only a 15% buff. So that would not be enough to go up to a 45-minute elixir. So there's a chance that possibly maxing out that one will give you a 45-minute duration on your elixirs.
Which is still cool, because I feel like a lot of times a half hour is just enough to be like, oh, is this why I'm like suddenly getting clapped in this nightmare I was doing? Because you're doing 2 back to back, and like, oh, I forgot my elixir check,
Yeah, that's more than enough time to get 2 elixirs down. I mean, 2 nightmare dungeons down for sure.
Yeah.
But those as far as we know, those are only for Season of the Malignant as is. We can assume that the season blessings thing will continue for next seasons. Otherwise, I don't think it would be called season blessings. But it may not use smoldering ashes, and it may not be the exact same ones. So we don't know.
But if they were to bring it over, it's something they could chuck into the renown system, which they said they're revamping as well. Yeah. They said that they're trying to make it so that more activities and more stuff you do, whatever it is you're doing, starts giving you renown, as opposed to just, oh, you've got to clear this thing, or you got to go clear that exact thing, do these side quests. Like, so, I think that's cool too.
Yep. Something to do. And that's honestly all we can ask for, right? Is something to do.
Yep.
Just new things, fresh things.
Just stuff to do. And like it's Season 1, so I'm not expecting the world. So the fact that they're giving us at least, I'd say 4 or 5 new things to do is not too bad.
Yep. So let's go ahead and go over a checklist of what you probably want to try to do before Season 1 does come out. Personally, on my list, since we know for a fact that the Fog of War that you clear on your highest character will carry over, and all the altars you find will carry over as well. So that also means that their renown will carry over. So you want to make sure you get those done. And obviously, in order to play the season, you want to complete the campaign.
My advice there, and because I've heard this a surprising lot on forums, social media, etc. People have been saying, okay, but if I died on my hardcore character that I had all that renown and had all this on, will it carry over? And they've, I believe said no to that. But my advice would be, don't do that stuff on your hardcore character.
Right.
Log in. So if your hardcore character is dead.
Yeah, you can't log in. Exactly. Yeah. That's the issue, is you have to log in with the character, then go into Season 1 with the new character. And so people were asking, well, if my hardcore character is dead. So yeah, don't do that stuff on a hardcore character. I know it'll help your hardcore character on the hardcore realm too, but do your final version for Season 1 prep on a casual realm character.
Dylan, you got any advice for them?
Yeah, I would say definitely you could take the time, if you've already got a character to max level now and you kind of messing around with alts, kind of have an idea of what character that your class that you want to start with, and kind of develop a plan, like a leveling plan for that you can sort of mimic now and be able to get off to a very quick start in the season. So like I'm already messing with the barbarian. That's what I've been planning to run in season 1. So I've been working on a barbarian, kind of getting an idea of how I want to build that character, at least through the first 20, 30, 40 levels or so, which are pretty fast to burn through and have most of the skill tree filled out, especially with the bonuses from the altars and from renown. So I can get a pretty good idea of what my leveling path is going to be, so that when the season starts, I'm able to jump right in and know exactly how I want to level this character, because I've already been down this path already. And that's going to make your start to season 1 and getting through the campaign, the season 1, season campaign, so much easier.
100%.
Yeah.
In a lot of the situation, the game isn't going to start until you are at 50. So take your time, enjoy it as much as you want, but make sure you do get to that end game in a reasonable amount of time, because you want to make sure you have enough time to experience everything for the season.
Yeah, so definitely I would do the campaign now so you can have fun with it at your leisure while like exploring the map and unlocking stuff, because if you work it all into one thing that you're doing as you're going, which is kind of like how Mal started out playing the game when we were playing. He'd go, oh, I'm gonna go to this dungeon because we're here to get this aspect, and I'm gonna do this thing because we're in the area. Oh, look, the Lilith statue's here, and this statue's here, and this statue's here as we're going through. Like if you kind of like roll it all into one while you're campaigning, your character will be ready to go and log-inable so that you can craft your new one on the season 1 realm with all that stuff unlocked, and then you didn't have to like steamroll through it so that you're not behind when the season starts.
Yep. And that also leads me into another good point you could have. It's unfortunately not in the game, so there's no build planner. But d4builds.gg, there's a bunch of other ones that you can go to online to test your builds out, look at what your builds would do, check your skill points, put your affixes on gear, and just see what it would look like at the end. Check your aspects and stuff like that as well. They help out a ton because it is costly
have a gear plan
to respec.
Yep, and have a gear plan.
Yep.
Because you want to know the affixes, you want to know the aspects, you want to know what you need, what you're looking for. You don't want to like get 40 levels into it and be like, man, I'm starting to feel a little sluggish killing stuff. What was I supposed to be targeting this whole time? Because you may have hit a threshold for item level, or be in a weird spot between them where like you're re-gearing at an awkward time. So make sure you have a gear plan as well, not just a straight up leveling path for your talents, but know the gear you're going for, know the affixes you want, and make sure that you're looking at the pieces that drop, even though that seems tedious.
Yeah. I'd say you don't really need to think about it until you get to tier 3, because you're going to be changing gear out a lot. And
that's why I was talking about like
that much.
That's why I was talking about like 40, 50. You want to make sure you're starting to like do that, because you get past that and it's just going to take a lot more time to fix.
Yep. That's pretty much all it is at a grain of salt. We talked about the changes coming up, what we like to see, what we would love to see going into the future, what's coming already that we know of, and what they could probably, speed along the fix as time goes on. We hope to see a lot of changes when Season 2 comes out, and we know for a fact that they're going to be taking a look at resistances, which for me is a change that is needed sooner rather than later, since resistances are fundamentally busted, and that means Sorcerer is fundamentally busted.
Yep.
So there's that. We hope that
resistances is also the simplest solution to poorly overlapping elite affixes as well, because better resistances means 3 lightning guys or 2 flame guys standing right on top of each other aren't necessarily the end of your night.
Yep. You'd be surprised how much damage is non-physical damage.
Mm-hmm.
But you just can't see it. But I would say that that's a pretty good podcast episode. What do you guys think?
Heck
you guys want to cover?
Yeah.
Dylan, you got anything else?
No, just I'm pumped for the season. I'm pumped to see, like, especially for the people that I've been playing with. I have a lot of people in my community, in and out of the community, who I haven't been able to actively play with because they got the game late and I started early access. And so being able to have everybody on the same playing field within this new content, that is what I'm excited about most. And for us to all be on the same page, day one, same time, no excuses. Let's get it done.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. I've got a lot of friends who have also, gone off the rest spot and as they wait for season 1 to drop because there just wasn't enough to keep them interested right now. So I'm excited to see all of them back in and getting those big parties running again.
Yep. Yep.
I know we've got that day 1 game plan, Dylan. I'm excited for that too.
Yeah.
Yep. So, we're looking forward to that for sure. Smokey, you got anything else?
No.
All right. Well, where can everybody find you guys, Dylan? Where can we find you?
Yeah, you can find me at twitch.tv/TheOrderOfDylan, playing Diablo every week. We're doing, right now we're doing leveling help. So if anyone's trying to get alt leveled up or their main leveled up in the Eternal Realm, we're doing some power leveling for people there. And you can find me at youtube.com/TheOrderOfDylan. We're posting weekly Diablo content and shorts, as well as long form videos, things from the stream, and things like that. And so, yeah, a lot playing with viewers, connecting with people, having really fun, insightful conversations about life and culture and food and all that, while slaying some demons. So, love to have you there.
And I know I'll be there a few times as well, and just popping my head and just seeing what's going on if I'm not in the party already.
Yes.
Smokey, where can we find you, buddy?
Twitch TV/Smokey, and you know this.
Yep.
And
make sure to give him a /toke whenever you drop by.
But yeah, I do that 3 to 6, sometimes a little 7, 8 Pacific, depending on if I go late. Mostly Diablo, and anybody needs help, I like helping. I also am almost to 90, so not quite as 100 and power level-y, but I still like to help people out. So if you need to clear your capstones or anything like that, I'll be down to help people with that pretty much all week leading up to the patch, or a couple weeks leading up to the patch. And nightmare help.
I would be intrigued to see how many people have hit level 100 in softcore and in hardcore at this point. I know we got that graphic close to the beginning of the season.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see.
At the beginning of launch, that showed the number of people that had been playing, the deaths so far, stuff like that. I'd be intrigued to see a more updated one going into season 1, just to see, because we've had this will be the shortest time period we'll have in a content period, I guess you could say, because this is a little over. I think
they said it was 5 weeks,
month and a half ish. Yeah, it's been 5 weeks since it launched, but the actual update
Pre-play
will be
would be
until the 20th, so that'll be closer to almost 2 months.
Yep. They did say the patch will be going out on the 18th, and all things that do carry over to the Eternal Realm will be live that day.
Yep. So you'll be able to farm the new uniques.
Yes.
If you're
early.
able to get those early, and possibly any balance changes.
Yeah. So you'll have a couple days.
Smooth.
Yeah.
Yep. So we've got about a little over a week before that comes out, a little under 2 weeks. So looking forward to that for sure. But that's going to be it for this podcast, everybody. Thank you so much for joining Smokey and Dylan. It was great to have you guys on.
Yeah, it's fun.
I hope we can do this again soon.
Hell yeah.
I'm probably going to try to do one for after the season drops. Maybe a little bit into the season, just so we can give actual feedback in regards to it.
Sounds good.
So we'll be in touch in regards to that. But I would say that's a great conclusion. And before I forget to plug myself too, Malkuvius, if you were listening to this, you're probably on one of my feeds. But you can find me on twitch.tv/Malkuvius, where I stream nothing but Diablo, except I'm thinking about starting a TFT segment. We'll see how that goes. But mostly nothing but Diablo for now. And you can also find me on youtube.com/Malkuvius, and where I post mostly Diablo content, and every now and then a short might pop up in there as well. But for the time being, that's going to be it. Thank you all so much for listening. Later.